Welcome to another episode of TCP. We're here for episode 196, a show where we discuss every single POV from the Overwatch 2 matches that have now come out on the Play Overwatch channel and all the maps that we played. Yiska's been hard at work poring over each frame of detail from every single player's POV. So, yeah, Yiska,
Still haven't watched a single second
rundown.
of that.
Give us a rundown.
Yeah, not a single second watched of that. I don't
care. People care about that.
That's because you're still scrubbing through the frames. It's very meticulous work. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I'm actually, just going. What's it called? Now I'm missing the English word. With pliers, just like an archaeologist. Tweezers, yeah. Just taking frame by frame, like on a Polaroid. Just going like this. Nah, I don't care. I don't give a fuck about this shit, dude. Like, this is not. This should hopefully not be the game we're playing. Holy fuck, is it like boring to watch? I don't care. This is a great start to the podcast. I love the new game, bro.
You heard it here first. Yiska doesn't care about Overwatch.
Look, dude, I've been hurt this week, right? Like, the amount of fucking legendary retirements this week was too much. And then, like, knowing that it's really hard to run this back with the same quality of what Overwatch once was. Like, yes, I liked Season 2 of Overwatch loads, but, like, in terms of the narrative enjoyment, it's Apex all the way, baby. And those guys are dropping like flies. So I'm going to be a bit spicy this podcast. Just notice I'm hurt. I was shot repeatedly this week.
Hurt people, yes. Okay? Yeah. You have to remember that. He is hurt, and he will hurt you.
You're giving us a warning like you haven't already just started out like at maximum spice already.
And your game is bad.
I don't even know how much further you can go from there.
Yeah.
Joe, what have you been up to?
I won't lie, boys. I won't lie. I've been degenning on that new world hype train. But the one thing I will say is that the lighting has been pristine. I walk into these caves. It's got like a really nice like day and night cycle where it's like I'm never sure when it turns into night. And I go into these caves and I'm like, I can't see anything. Like, where am I going? Like,
you're not real, for right? Like, this is like watching porn and liking the curtains. What are you talking about lighting in a video game, bro?
The lighting, it's the little things. It's the little things. It's kind of like the Overwatch League postseason. It's really dark. You can't really see anything. You're like, wow. Where's my team going? Atlanta, are they going Western? Are they going mixed? Who knows? We're not sure. Where's Florida up to? But you know what would be good for the offseason? Yiska?
What?
You know what would be good? A powerful 4000K LED spotlight. That's right. This is an ad. It was an ad all along. I fooled you. That's why a 4K powerful LED spotlight on your Lawnmower 4.0 would be a fantastic gift. We've heard your feedback. We've heard you. The audience, responding in the comments, talking about, maybe you could use a shave or two, trying to line things up, maybe a gift for a loved one. And that's why this episode is proudly supported by Manscaped.com, who is the best in men's below the waist grooming champions of the world. Manscaped offers precision engineered tools for your family jewels. We want to keep those supporting pieces intact in the off season. That's very important. AVRL's talked about the value of flex supports and maybe necessarily, maybe cutting the main tank. So we want to make sure those cuts are precise. And that's why Manscaped has you covered with that advanced skin safe technology. Will keep your Zenyatta players and all of their orbs flying free balling. The 2021 season was all about having pristine wrecking balls, right? So why not keep yours pristine? That's why you need to use promo code Tactical Crouch, all caps, no space, for 20% off and free shipping at Manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at Manscaped.com. Use promo code Tactical Crouch and unlock all your confidence, and always use the right tools for the job. With Manscaped, your balls will thank you.
You don't want to be like Chengdu, who recently did cut their balls. So
Exactly.
That might hurt. One of their balls has been cut. Other one, as far as I'm aware, is safe. But we are going to spend the episode talking about a lot of the changes from the recent, now official contract status, would you say, sheet, webpage, news article blog from the official Overwatch League channel. And go and check that out. we'll probably put into the description as well, Joe. That can be your job. As there's a lot of great info that came out quite recently, and now it's officially confirmed what all the statuses of the players on each and every single team is in terms of whether they are a free agent. Have they had their contract renewed? Is their team option exercised? Was the team option declined, etc.? That's all been confirmed and all official now. So there's no more speculation about like, well, who's actually there and who's not there. And that leaves a lot of interesting questions behind it. It also answers a lot of questions, to be fair, and also confirms further things that were rumored in the past. But the contract statuses of different players are always going to still be in flux. This is a developing sort of situation where I'm sure as we move through the weeks, more and more players will be picked up, and free agents should be signed because there's a lot of open space around it. There's a lot of teams that have cut quite a lot of players, even from last week. Like last week, we talked about that being the case, where we looked at 3 teams that had pretty much done that. More teams now have gone ahead and basically cut everyone minus 1 player, or maybe they're cutting their entire roster. Who knows? A lot of positions available for free agents. So we're going to go through not every single team today, but most of the teams that we didn't get to talk about last week. And we're going to talk about a lot of teams where if we did talk about them last week, if they've had updates to, free agent statuses or how their roster currently looks. And we'll talk about those updates as well. But beyond that, if we don't talk about your team today, it's likely that we did talk about your team last week. So I do suggest you go back to last week's episode if you missed it, to kind of get an idea of where your team is in that sort of stage, and maybe in future as well if things change.
Or your team's not good enough to be talked about. It's also
or we just hate you. We just hate you as an individual. We just have singled you out today, and we're bullying you.
You say that, guys, but I've got some interesting teams. I've got the 3 lowest performing teams from the season on the docket to talk about today. So really, it doesn't get worse than that. So if we're willing to talk about those teams, then really anything's available, isn't it? So
just rub it in.
You can never be too bad. Apparently, you can never be too bad.
That's true.
But speaking
Shanghai
of things,
Dragons.
well, oh yeah, Shanghai. That's the other thing is like we're probably not. I don't know that we'll talk about Shanghai because they're too good. They have the opposite problem. Speaking of things, guys, that are just simply too good. Our patrons, of course. Episode 186, brought to you by Battle Crab, Refined Bean, Bronzebot Boohow, Chare, Chris R34444, Frdwnr, Hunter Tane, Porkchop Sammy, Casher67, Lolshin, Rexane, Volamel and Sugar High, Warmedy, and Your Misery. Okay, so I guess we can just start with some of these teams. Or is there anything else that was quite interesting? No, actually, I lied. We're not going to start with the teams just yet. I teased you. I baited you. That's how I am. We're actually going to contextualize. We're actually going to contextualize today's topics by exploring the tier 2 scene, the path to pro situation first, because there's a lot of obviously free agents from that end of things that are getting added into the free agent pool. Obviously, everyone from path to pro is a free agent. Everyone that is not in Overwatch League is legally and technically speaking free agent. But it's more interesting to just kind of address, what that kind of looks like first, and who those tier 2 players are that we might want to be on the lookout for, and maybe a little bit of where tier 2 might be going in the future before we get into any of the individual teams, because there's a lot of interesting stuff there first to sort of contextualize what the overall free agent pool looks like. So
can I just make one caveat, because what you said technically is true. The thing is, like, if you are assigned to a contenders team that also has contracts for you and has considerable buyouts, that includes like academy teams and also some of the Korean contenders teams, of course, and Chinese, then you have a buyout. And when I talked to Vala, she basically said being a budget team means you're not paying buyouts unless they are very different circumstances. So that will be something that we need to keep in mind, that like while you might think, for instance, like in Dredro's case, right? Like he wasn't even in the initial Paris trials because it was with Boston Academy. That means he has a buyout. That means it's not interesting for a team like Paris, and that's true for a lot of teams in the season. Well, now, keep in mind, they did end up, for instance, signing Vestola, who of course was on the Spitfire Hurricane. And the reason they were able to do that was because they needed someone on short notice, like 3 days for Elevote. And my understanding is that the Spitfire were also pretty welcoming towards that change. And I think the buyout wasn't wasn't very high in comparison to what he's actually worth.
Any tier 2 team can have a buyout. I'm sure they all do because the whole point of the tier 2 for a lot of these teams is to sell their players to the Overwatch League.
Yeah.
So I mean, the buyout is kind of everything. That's kind of the whole point.
Yes. It's just a competitive disadvantage against like actual FAs from Overwatch League teams that sadly has to be considered, right? Like if I'm in a, let's say, like someone like Crimzo is FA, he now doesn't need a buyout. He might command like a sign-on bonus or whatever. That might amount to the same thing. But yeah, like you're not evaluating free agents solely based on that, because a lot of teams also have different pools. They have salary pools and they have buyout pools, and they need to allocate them. And like the general managers or whoever is handling the finances very often needs to pitch that to the ownership and say, I need that pool and that pool. And some orgs are even this antsy to say, well, yes, you have 100K left in the buyout pool, but that's not in the salary pool. No go. Like that's not, like we can't move it around. Like you gave us a budget. This is what you got to deal with. So, yeah, for sure. Like keep in mind some of those free agents, unfortunately, and it has been the case very often, that these dynamics have absolutely decided who's going to make it to the Overwatch League or not. Do you have a buyout? Are you teamless? Do you demand like a sign-on bonus even though you deserve one? Like this has decided careers before.
It's the financials of running a professional sports league. That's just the case globally across anything. So good context. Thanks for that, Yiska. As I think I probably missed it. On one part, I was thinking, well, that probably only applies to academy teams, and I kind of realized, well, every team could have a buyout. So
there are some South Korean organizations. Some of them have been back at us for sure in the past. Like some of them actually recouped their investment in the players, what they paid, right? Like
I'm sure Runaway got a bag for selling their original team to Vancouver, wholesale. Yeah. I'm sure they got a bag for that.
I think KDP does as well. Yeah.
Yeah, any team. There's a bunch of teams from South Korea that have shipped off 10 plus players to the Overwatch League. Some of them are still folded, like Runaway and Element Mystic still end up folding, which is so strange to me because I would have imagined they could have recouped, but who knows? Maybe the cost of running the teams was just too high. But it's kind of crazy because we're talking about some of the most successful tier 2 teams of all time, and even then they still end up folding.
Yeah.
So that's a bit wild. One that's kind of stood the test of time though is O2 Blast, who recently won Contenders Korea Season 2 finals. Casted by yours truly. That was actually played on LAN in the Busan Esports Arena, which had a limited audience as well. So that was kind of cool to actually cast a live event. I mean, obviously I wasn't there, but the actual players were, and there was a lot of on LAN shots and etc. And then they get to do an actual trophy lift live and all that kind of stuff, which is great rather than just seeing people on a bunch of webcams celebrating, which is for the most part what everyone else and all other esports kind of have to deal with on some level. So that part was quite cool. O2 Blast were the favorite team, and they actually didn't win comfortably. It was a 4-3 result. But there's a lot of talent in Korea. That doesn't really need to be said. Everyone knows that Korea is just monstrously full of talent. A lot of these guys coming out from Contenders Korea could be absolutely huge in the Overwatch League. But there is a bit of conflict in terms of buyout statuses there. Obviously, Yiska already touched on buyouts, and that could affect some things. A lot of academy teams as well. There's a real high potential that if you look at teams like T1, for example, which is the academy team of the Fusion, if they wanted to bring over a T1 player into the Fusion, it probably wouldn't be that hard because they already own that contract. So, could be something there. Not too sure.
I mean, and for a lot of these teams, this will be a huge deal, right? Like a Preda comes to mind. Like promotions are like much easier, of course, in terms of like academy team to main roster.
And Seoul have done that a lot. Seoul promote all the time,
and they probably will do again. I could totally see Stalker moving up, right? Like theoretically speaking, as like a backup. Even though I don't know, like if that's like the investment you're getting there, you're probably also getting a pretty decent bag for him in the market, and it also depends what the player wants to do. Like It's not too often the case that a player in the Overwatch League is forced to stay somewhere against his absolute will and play there. Like often, even or like recently publicly, we saw like with the brand tweet, not only is it true that, for instance, Atlanta lets players move if they have an opportunity that they want to pursue because it want guys that want to be there, but it is also the case that this happened for Atlanta in the Kai situation. Like, that was pretty public, where Kai had a slightly better offer with another organization last year, and that like Kai would have liked or wanted to more play for the Reign, and therefore like they made that work, right? So it's not as cutthroat as business could be, and where you're forced to just be there. I think they realize, like, a player that doesn't want to be in your team in a game as heavily reliant on grind as Overwatch is probably not the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you have NA and also EU that have concluded. And there's a lot of talk about where the ex-American Tornado players are going to go. Obviously, they've split themselves up across various teams, Red Bird Esports namely being the predominant one to talk about. But there's been some heavy interest in those players. A lot of rumors circling around those specific players. Rumors surrounding them going to Atlanta, potentially Mayhem, any other team that wants to focus on more North American talent. Some part of me thinks this is a great idea in terms of it's good that finally NA Contenders talent gets a real shot, because for the longest time in Overwatch League's history, NA and EU talent on some level domestically, they've been kind of overlooked in favor of Korean talent, which is also understandable because Korean talent has been phenomenal. But NA talent, it's like hard. I was looking at Wob's journey from last year's contenders to this season of Overwatch League, and there's just so few teams that you can actually join as a Western player. It's either got to be a mixed team or an actual Western team, of which there's barely any of. There's a lot of full Korean teams out there, or like or maybe it's a Korean, maybe it's a Chinese on a roster, or maybe it's a Korean Chinese roster, and all of those are no-goes, complete no-goes for a Western player at all, whereas that's been completely open now. It does, on the other hand, though, the opposite of that would be that depending on how far down you're going in the contenders pool for NA or EU or anywhere really, talent does probably start to fall off quite sharply. So once you get past the American Tornado guys, there's probably still some relatively good individual pieces, but if you go too far down, like maybe you go 3 teams down and you start dropping off from there, like, guys, it's getting real bad after a while. So once Atlanta and Mayhem kind of scoop up everyone they want, if you're still trying to go full Western after that, you're probably in trouble.
Yeah.
There's two kind of meta discussions around, I think, the Western contenders regions in general that has been very kind of wholesome and very kind of heartwarming for me in particular, where I look at a team like Redbird Esports, who obviously is partnered with a collegiate system in general. And I look at that and I kind of hope that continues. Obviously, we've heard the announcement about Overwatch Homecoming. Don't know if there's been any updates on that, but I do enjoy the push for collegiate esports, at least in North America. And then secondly, you talk about Western free agents. There are some rookies that are coming in that I would love to see form a team, maybe including some of the Western free agents that are on the market right now, and maybe try to not develop them. That sounds a little too aggressive, but I think that would be a really interesting story to kind of look at going forward within Overwatch, taking somebody, some names we'll get to a little bit later that, are without a home right now, and pairing them with some of these younger talents, trying to maybe take them under their wing or be that veteran voice that they need to kind of stay calm, and seeing what that looks like. Because yes, I agree where AVRL saying, like, if everybody's going Western, there's really not enough talent in this region of the world to really kind of go around. So you are kind of grasping at straws. But if you do kind of slot over some of those bigger names, I wonder if you could do a lot with a little.
You'd have to be, you'd have to have a lot of hopium there, because you're not only you building for a new game, but you're in a very competitive league that's only gotten more and more competitive
For sure.
every single season. And okay, we can bring up the argument that some teams and maybe an ever increasing amount of teams are looking to go more budget, but I still haven't really seen the level of play drop. Some teams just don't compete at all, and there's going to be like 3 to 4 teams that maybe just simply don't compete. But then you get past that, and everyone's phenomenal. So there's a level where there's definitely a bar in the Overwatch League that's quite high currently, and I wouldn't be surprised if that continues even with a new game, as there's just phenomenal talent that you can't ignore. And to be fair, in EU as well, like I don't know what the exact status is going to be, but if you're looking at EU, Falcons Esports just won there as well. So Redbird won in NA, no surprises. Falcons Esports rather won in EU. British Hurricane actually only came third, so
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with British Hurricane. They're no longer the dominant force they used to be. Danit even gets one over his former team on Shoes Money Crew, who ended up coming second in the most recent tournament. And so I don't know if I assume Paris is probably looking at EU talent. Maybe they'll mix up with some NA talent as well. London's probably looking at these teams, so there's definitely less opportunities for the EU players even beyond, because the NA players at least have the advantage of being locally and domestically in North America, and it's easy for them to, just play due to legal status there, or if they're Canadian, just come over, and it's probably a lot easier than getting a European player over. So there's that going for them. It's definitely tough for the Europeans, and yeah, feel bad for them. But at the same time, I think Europe's just in a weird place. They have the level of play in Europe is probably still a little bit below on average. I'd say the top level teams in the past have competed, like old British Hurricane versus American Tornado is still pretty good, but like talent in EU probably drops off a cliff even harder than it does in NA after a certain level.
The one thing that I appreciate about this season, and I won't claim to have watched a lot, but when I look at EU and I remember it fondly through the lens of Overwatch 1, I remember teams like Clockwork Venda. I look at and I'm like, this region does produce some like comically stylistic teams.
Mm-hmm.
Like that will just take the most goofy compositions and like become a problem. Not a threat, a problem, right? And they eventually get solved later on. But like there's that start of the week 2, right? Early week 1 where it's like they upset some big name team that has a lot of expectations packing around them. And it's like I look at London and I look at Paris, I'm like one of these teams, or maybe even a Western team, that's kind of shifting visions. Coming into Overwatch 2, I'm like, I wonder if that's a possibility in the Overwatch League. Not a high level kind of like cheese team, but like trying to be like overly stylistic like we saw last year and taking that to like the next level. I appreciate that about EU. I know that's kind of a backhanded compliment, but I do like them.
There's limited mileage on that. I mean, for all they've done, still end up finishing outside the top 4 at the end of the day. You get red and you get figured out if you're a cheese team eventually.
Did you see the rollout on Eichenwald by Hurricane for that?
No.
Yeah, that was
that was some Meta Athena 2017 garbage, bro. So just to explain to those guys who haven't seen it, Hurricane is defending.
Yeah.
They haven't even told what map it. Say what map it is.
No, I said on Eichenwald.
Yeah, you did.
And then, okay. Eichenwald A, yeah.
So they're on Castle on the tower. Like after the gate, right?
Okay, no, you're gone. Yeah.
So
on B.
And it's still before the map starts, right? So they're sitting there. They're main wall boosting up the Reinhardt and the Lucio. And they jump over the castle. It's a really yoinky like type of rollout. I'm not sure, like Eric is trying to bring it up, but unfortunately probably will be too laggy. But and they just like have this weird rollout also with Doomfist where they drop into the choke and try to get someone. It fails horribly, but that was some Meta Athena garbage, bro. Like that's
what I'm
the type
talking
of shit that we used to get a lot. And that is some of the. This is my hope for like. Let me see. Actually, this might work. So. Let's put it on here. So they're boosting up here. Boom. Charge. Jump. And die horribly.
And then die. And then just lose, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
That's the kind of play that you can only do one time and then
Yes.
everyone knows about it.
Yep.
You can never do it again.
Yep.
You gotta respect him for trying it.
You
Yeah.
gotta hope that it works.
Yeah.
Well, they mistimed it because the Doom goes in slightly earlier than the Ryan, and she dies, and they all get walled off.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. So that's just some weird stuff that happens. Or you can just be good at the game and win normally, but that's an aside, isn't it? So this is probably gonna be it for contenders. Well, actually, hang on. China's still finishing this week, depending on when you're watching. This week could be at any time. So China's finishing their grand finals on October the 17th. Australia's finishing their finals on October 21st. So 2 more regions left to go. We will officially end Overwatch 1 professional esports on the Contenders Australia final. So the Australian teams will be the last 12 players professionally playing Overwatch 1 at the end of this year, which is one way to go out. And I'll also be casting that one too, so I'll be sending us. I'll be sailing us into the night, pushing that boat out, sending it off a waterfall. I might even light it on fire first, get that bow out, catch that arrow on fire, send them off, full Viking funeral. Goodbye, Overwatch 1. That will be the final time.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean that's going to be it for the year. It's all done and dusted, and then we'll move forward to whatever's going to happen next year, and eventually Yiska's going to be forced to look at Overwatch 2.
Yeah.
You can only avoid it for so long, but
maybe as early as February. Yoink.
There's plenty of room available now.
Yeah.
As far as free agents go for new teams. There's some exceptional talent individually coming through. I don't know if any teams. I don't know that there's going to be like too many wholesale movements into Overwatch League. Like even for example, we'll talk. We can address the fact that you have teams like Atlanta that still have a decent chunk, so they can't even get a team wholesale. Mayhem could probably do it, but they'd have to find a team that's not been already ransacked by other teams that have gotten there first, or potentially with better offers. And like, who knows what some teams like New York are doing, and what are Valiant doing? This is why we're going to talk about teams like that today. Talk about teams like the Valiant because there's big question marks where the hell they're going and who they're going to get. Because there's a real chance that when you look at the NA pool, the NA pool is just too limited. Maybe a few years back, maybe you look back in 2018, you could make more decent teams out of NA. There were way more academy teams in 2018, 2019. Yep. Things have fallen off big time since then.
Yeah.
Even in Korea, I think it used to be I felt like at some level, maybe back in the day in Contenders Korea, pretty much every team was competitive. Now you have half the teams are very competitive. Maybe the half teams that I'm talking about, the half teams at the top are so damn good that makes everyone else look bad, and the other bottom half of Contenders Korea is still good enough that if they went to NA, they'd be very, very good. But it's hard to say. It's hard to say that on an eye test. You'd have to actually have some sort of competition internationally to prove that. But there's a lot of stomping happening in Contenders Korea. Like, I casted more 3-0s in this season of Contenders Korea than I think I've ever done in Contenders Korea. It's kind of wild. There's been so many 3-0s. I'm like, what is going on? Like, teams are stomping each other at a level that, to me, is unexpected. The skill gap just increased. But it also does mean that Contenders Korea is producing some incredibly good talent, mainly off of like 3-ish kind of teams, and mainly off the team that's just won the Contender season in O2 Plus. Spent a lot of time giving them praise, but we all love Proper. We all know he's going to pop off and pound. But the rest of his team is also fantastic. Talon have a bunch of great players. T1 have a few great pieces in there, as do CC. CC, who, by the way, have dropped everybody except for Super Rich, so they've done their own little mayhem, little situation here. They've done their own Houston Outlaws in a way where they just completely bin everyone.
But I think, like, kind of looping back to like the start of the show, when you release people like that, that's probably a better chance that those players are being picked up because they're not under contract anymore, right? There's no buyout to be kind of argued over in the back channels of the Overwatch League front offices, right? So it's like if you're gonna speculate, maybe that's where you make some of your first moves.
It's kind of silly from Shanghai. CC is Shanghai's academy team, by the way, if that's the case, because they just lose opportunities to make money off that.
Okay, here's the thing. At what point is a Western or like a team that plays in the West going to take a chance on Chinese talent the same way they're doing on Korean talent? Because
I mean,
like theoretically speaking, the setup is not that much worse. Like from like I don't know why you would think that. So basically, like you're buying a Chinese player. That means you're installing a Chinese infrastructure for him. You need a translator and whatever. That's likely not going to get it. You are likely not going to get away from that within one season, even though you totally could, right? But it's not like the Chinese talent funnel looks like very exhausted anytime soon. Like China is the Overwatch region, right? And if there's pastures that everyone's grazing on, why are you not taking the second most green, which easily is China, right? So especially like if you look at the actual Chinese teams, Shanghai doesn't seem to be making any moves into China. Like Guangzhou has like a share. Chengdu, okay, that's the team. Like that's full Chinese, and then Hangzhou has like a split. It's like effectively like in summation 2 teams that even take Chinese players at this point, right? Like 1 plus 2 half teams. That's like 12 people that could be Chinese in the Overwatch League. While they are the second biggest talent pool, and there's way more European players than 12, and there's like way more NA players than 12. At what point are you going to say, much like League of Legends once did, like let's actually invest into this talent funnel that is currently clearly underserved, especially for those that try to make like a bargain deal. Yes, I understand like maybe the immigration law prices are prohibitive or whatnot, but like it feels like in terms of like like finding cheaper opportunities in underserved markets, China is the way to go.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, and again, I won't claim to be in the know or be knowledgeable about this, but I have to imagine that the logistics of doing that is probably a little bit different, right? That's got to be harder.
You guys saw the tweets by Eddy Meng, like COO of the Charge, right? So basically, he said like, of course, his team has a contenders team, and they said like we are totally capable of giving you guys P1s or a P1 Ace. So like sometimes there are mind barriers to issues where you think like you're not even second guessing like the barrier that you have. I think like there should be a second guessing and a reevaluation. Like as far as I know, like legitimately Valiant under packing were the only team that were even sourcing that idea. I'm sure others have done it, and I haven't looked at it. Yeah. And I'm sure the fact that we don't have Chinese players on rosters playing in the West probably means something. But like I wonder if the barrier is just like overvalued in the mind of those that make the roster decisions, because I don't know, dude. Like I look at the talent pool, I still can't believe Dia wasn't a better option than half of the people that were actually playing in his position last year. I'm sorry. Yes, you're now having to invest into a different like system because like you might need a Chinese translator or whatnot. But that like you're doing that for Korean players anyway, right? Yes, you might not even.
Like, Eddie's been saying like a lot of the Chinese talent have just as good of English, if not better, than the Korean talent.
Yeah,
they all common English anyway. Like, well, if you're in a full Chinese team, then maybe not. But for the Chinese teams that have a mixed roster, and a lot of them do, a lot of them actually have Koreans in their roster. They common English, so they have a lot of experience common English. They like it's not difficult. I think there's just been some weird misconceptions. And also, a lot of teams probably, and this is speculation from me, a lot of teams probably, they put it into too hard basket. It's actually not too hard, but they just put it into like, I don't want to have to think about that basket. And it's just like, if I'm going to get an Asian import, we're going to go Korea is the immediate line of thought. That's, by the way, this is the same thing that's happened in League of Legends for the longest time as well. It's like, well, if we're going to get someone from that side of the world, why don't we just go Korean? why would you get a Chinese talent? Even though now, even in that game, it's proven that Chinese talent are as good, if not better. They've won enough world championships. They've proven themselves, and yet you've only just seen maybe the first go over to the LCS to sort out. Okay, maybe he bombed a little bit, but that's blame his team more than the player. I think the player is fine. Yeah, there's a couple of different things. It's just been so weird how Western teams have viewed that, where for some reason they view it as more difficult when the reality is that it's actually not.
I think that underline, logistically, if that's sound, then I would like to see more teams try to tap into that, because I think Yiska touches on a really pivotal point that if China is going to be kind of one of the big markets for Overwatch, we either need teams to start paying attention to that, or the teams that eventually want out, I guess. Maybe you replace that with more APAC teams. Maybe you give, not give, but you to court new Chinese franchises and try to build out that infrastructure a little bit more. I don't know which was easier, to be fair.
It's like so weird. Like, it's almost like you sometimes just need to see the precedent of someone just like performing very well with that type of roster. Like, I can tell you, like, and it absolutely positively shouldn't be the case, but if Chengdu had the same success as Shanghai this year, then we would have a very different look on the transfer market, because everyone would be like, wait, hold on, Chinese players can win Overwatch League tournaments. And then it would be a different perception around these players, right?
Do you think so?
Yeah. Hey, Molly's an Overwatch League champion now. Done.
Yep.
No, but like, they got good enough and close enough anyway. Like, I don't even think that.
Yeah.
They shouldn't even have to need to win.
I think somebody to kind of branch off from your precedent comment, I think somebody just needs to do it first to show that it's possible, and then you start to see more and more people.
I think it's also like it's unexplored. Like, they probably haven't really explored the Chinese scene. They don't know who's good. They don't know all these kind of things. Like, it's almost like if you're a Western team, you're like, well, I'll do it for leave, but beyond that, I'm not too sure. It's kind of like that's probably the attitude in some cases, They probably would. I mean, dude, I think any team would love to have someone as good as Leave, as long as he's not ultra expensive. He probably is. I don't know. He's worth it if anything. But it's almost like you have to be even better as a Chinese talent to even be considered. Otherwise, it's quote unquote too hard, right? So,
I mean,
there's that.
Let's keep in mind, like, what kind of team would try this? Probably one that tries to think out of the box, make the most bang for their buck. The problem is, like, the visa process and everything, the cost can be prohibitively expensive for teams like this, right? Like, an organization like the London Spitfire and the Paris Eternal in 2021, who, like, didn't have team houses and whatever, and saved big time on not having to have immigration lawyers go over through the cases, even though I think they did for playoffs, not 100% sure. But, like, not having those costs is basically, like, I imagine it's probably, like, 20K, 30K per player. Maybe that's naive. I should have probably researched this. But I think it's a significant portion if you relate that to what you would be paying for endemic talent and what that means to house them and get them a visa hookup. So, like, in general, like, I get that the cost is prohibitive. That said, I think a lot of these organizations are going to have to play that anyway. Like, it sounded like in the interview I did with Nuki that they were trying to get over. I would imagine after the fiasco of like potential Hawaii qualification for Paris, that they want to get over, and that Overwatch League has a certain incentive to get everyone over. So the cost is pretty much the same if you're getting a European player over or like a Chinese player. I guess it's like the work paths. Like, you probably already have your immigration lawyers from the EU to the US lined up in your innermost organization, like parent org or whatever. So that's easier. But other than that, I don't think the costs would be prohibitively expensive in comparison. And I'm sure, like, after a team like Chengdu, who currently probably can pick a la carte for Chinese talent, after they are done, like, there will probably be like a lot of quality players left. Like, and we have had quality players. Like, we've had Leaves, Jinmus, Eileen's, Gushues. like these are some of the best players in their positions at each respective time, and their value has been demonstrated and should have been demonstrated, by the way, already. Like I thought, for instance, when World Cup their success happened, that a push like this would have been likely, especially when the coin wasn't as restrictive at that time. So hopefully, eventually, we break through that barrier in Overwatch 2, especially like hopefully with international travel coming up and that sort of like eroding those barriers as well. But yeah.
Last thing we'll talk about for tier 2, because we've been on the topic for a long time now, as always, is that no idea what the future tier 2 looks like with Overwatch 2 on the horizon, because my personal speculation is that it would be hard to run tier 2 without a release of the actual game. So you're either going to have to see tier 2 resume next year as scheduled as normal on Overwatch 1, while Overwatch League goes to Overwatch 2, or, which would be weird, by the way. Imagine having both Overwatch 1 and Overwatch 2 esports running simultaneously. It'd be such a strange thing. Or Overwatch 2, or tier 2 simply can't continue until, you know, a wider audience can access Overwatch 2. And before anyone says like, oh yeah, why don't they just give all of tier 2 access to Overwatch 2 like they're giving Overwatch League? It's like, there's so many people. That is such an extreme amount of people, and a lot of people who don't have the same level of investment for the professional scene in terms of what they could potentially be losing. Because unless Overwatch 2 is so ready that you can, I mean, if you're willing to give it to that many people in terms of players, you'd have to be willing to just go for a public beta at that stage, or like a closed beta that members of the public can access. If you're not willing to do that, then there's no way you're going to give it to tier 2 players, because there's a level of risk there that you just can't afford to take, where some dude who doesn't give a shit could just leak it if they want to, and you'll be like, how do you even punish them? You know, they don't care. It's like, well, I don't care about going Overwatch League Pro. I'm just leaking it for the lols, you know. There's so much risk just giving it to tier 2 players in general.
To be fair,
who don't have anything to lose.
Yeah, to be fair, like I think eventually, like the same fear, unfortunately, is also the case just by the sheer amount of Overwatch League players that will be there. That like, while you're probably not getting in-game footage, and I don't think they will make it actually like a matter of leak. Like, okay, real talk. If you find something out over the Play Overwatch Twitter, then this is the same time that Overwatch League GMs and below are finding out about Overwatch 2 right now. Very few people are more clued in than you within the Overwatch League, right? It sucks, and it's done to prevent leaks, which, by the way, is a stupid idea and actually has absolutely no effect. Like, if you're on the Blizzard side and watching this, it doesn't work. It actively doesn't work. Then, like, I think what will happen is Overwatch League players will get access. We'll get back to only watch. They actually will be allowed to stream their scrims or pugs, but there won't be an open ranked queue or whatever is going on.
Yeah.
And that in itself, I don't know. I feel like first time around that was already so hype destroying. And we'll see how it goes. But yeah, generally speaking, I think that's just like logically for me currently the most likely scenario how this is going to go down.
Yeah, I don't think you can do only watch twice, right? I think one thing that has stuck out, I believe Yiska kind of planted this in my head, was like the idea of like you're trying to the bandwidth of your attention these days is stretched very thin, and there's a lot of esports to go around, especially this month, right? You've got Worlds, you've got TI, you've got all these big new shiny things coming out. It's like, do I want to just sit here and invest my time into only watch again, right? It's not novel anymore. It still looks like Overwatch, even though it isn't. Or it's different enough to be different. Yeah, I hope the messaging is you know, there. I hope they don't just ghost contenders. I hope they give like a clear start date with the start of the game or shortly thereafter. I hope that, or maybe it's a wish of mine that maybe we get like a beta tournament for select regions where, you know, once the open beta does go live to the public, that we can actually see a top-down organizational effort to try and, you know, give a show match. You know, it's not going to be the best competition, but at least we're trying to put the spotlight back on the Path to Pro a little bit.
I don't even know that the show match matters. Like, what, you got to show up for one game and then not play again? It just, who cares? Like, it's so stupid. Like, there's only 3 outcomes. It's either A, they get access to Overwatch 2, same as Overwatch League players do. B, they don't get access, and that's it. Nothing happens, and they're done. Or C, they play Overwatch 1. Right? That's literally the only 3 outcomes. There's nothing in between. And 2 of those outcomes are basically like, no, okay. One of those outcomes is pretty bad, but I also think maybe the most likely outcome, which is that they just won't be anything to play. And if you're a player that's not, this is not, forget about tier 2 for a second. If you're a player that was in the Overwatch League this season, and now you've been dropped, or you can't find a team, and now you can't get back into the Overwatch League for next season, what do? There's nothing to play in. Or if you are playing, you're playing at best in Overwatch 1. So you're kind of fucked. Like, it's not a great situation to be in. It does seem really strange. Part of me, almost as stupid as it sounds, just wishes we just played Overwatch 1 again next year. Yep. But and at first that sounds like a super ridiculous statement to make. But the more I think about it, the more I'm like, splitting the pro pool and like kind of getting Overwatch 2 in early creates so many problems, like an unbelievable amount of problems. And it wouldn't be that way if the game was more readily available, but like that's just I'm not here to preach, not going to preach the choir here or anything. But you need like a closed beta. You need a minimum like a closed beta that people can start getting access to, that are not just pro players. Similar to what Valiant were doing with their closed beta initially, right? You need something like that to, I think, have a real pro scene, because no one wants to do only watch. I think this whole only watch thing is just ridiculous. So that will be really bad.
I think here's how it's probably going to go down, and I'm not leaking anything in terms of like, I'll pepper in some stuff I've heard. It's not a confirmed thing. Don't take it more. But I think the timelines are the following. You got to sign a roster before January without having played Overwatch 2. 1.
Yep.
You will soon after get access to Overwatch 2. Hopefully you signed your players on the minimum 30-day ability to fire them, because you don't know if they're holding up. By February till start of the league, we'll probably have preseason. Right? Like, we will have some events. Teams will get some ability to try out their players. If you, by that time, haven't given contenders players also access, and your team sucks, who are you even signing? Who are you signing?
It is a complete gamble on if you
You're
actually
gambling
make moves.
you're gambling on Overwatch 1 players.
Yeah,
100%.
pretty much.
So
I think
I don't know. Like, yes, like if you have, let's say, I don't know, 4 to 6 preseason events, and you're playing those, and you're absolutely sucking, and a lot of teams will have trouble like adjusting to this. Like, what are you doing? Like, I don't see how this season doesn't become clown shoes. In terms of, like, if you like parity, you will hate Overwatch Season 5 with the current setup as it presents itself to me.
Ooh.
So, yeah, it's, to be fair, like, there's such a huge lack of information, and things can change very quickly.
Yeah, very
right now, it's a lot of speculation on like the what ifs and could be's. For context as well, I haven't leaked anything. I'm just speculating as well. I have no idea what it could be. I'm just kind of guessing. Based on what kind of makes sense to me. So maybe some educated guessing in there. It's just like the best available outcome is that by the time Overwatch League starts next year, maybe even by preseason, but more realistically by the actual proper start date, sometime in April, that simultaneously a closed beta can launch, and then contenders players can start rolling in, and very lucky people in the public who maybe watch Overwatch League for a drop can get in as well. That is I think the best possible outcome, but it requires the game to be ready. Ready enough that you're willing to have public people touch that game, right? And for the secrets to be out. Secrets being like, all the stuff that you're hiding right now that you don't want the public to see about the game just yet, maybe because it's not ready. Once people get to touch that and play with that, things are different. And I know that devs are hesitant to reveal too much or show too much because not because they like to be secretive, but mostly because unfortunately the general public don't understand what alpha, beta, and pre-release means.
Yeah.
They think anything they see at any single point in time is final product. And no matter how hard you say this is not a final product, you can slap that shit on screen, you can tattoo it on the general public's foreheads, they still don't understand they still don't understand. They still think what they're seeing is a final product, and you couldn't convince them otherwise. It's the most ass backward thing, and I hate that people are stupid enough that unfortunately they ruin it. And that is, by the way, also another reason why devs don't communicate as much, because anything they communicate is taken
heavily
at face value,
scrutinized,
is what's scrutinized because the general public believes it's a final product. You could say, we are currently working on X and Y, and the general public say, oh my God, you see, they're going to do X and Y thing. That's going to be the final product. And that's what they say. And it's like, are you joking? It's like, it clearly it's not going to be they did not say it was going to be final product. But again, people's brains are small, so they don't understand that.
It's also the situation as it presents itself to show some empathy. Yo, there's no good place. There's just no good place. You're sitting there in an apocalypse. You have 5 children and food for 4. Gotta cut one off. You gotta. Like, this is basically the I mean, like, you gotta make some, like, really grave inflictions that depart from, like, a clean running of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you wanted to have it squeaky clean, we'd be playing Overwatch 2 right now. Right? That's already the case. Yeah. Like, if you want to run the league next year, then people could now, like, get on Overwatch 2, log on. You could start to develop some skill sets. People could then maybe, like, in January, start trialing, and we'd start the week by April. It would still not be optimal, but it would be pretty good. That doesn't seem to be an option. So, I mean, you got to leave some behind. It's just how it is. Like, it's a shit sandwich, and you got to take a deep bite, dude. Like, it's unfortunately the case.
I can't, for the life of me, remove the idea of reverse hero pools out of my brain. Where instead of banning heroes, every month we add a new Overwatch 2 hero, and that's like the beta progression for next season. Reverse hero pools.
Sorry, did you just describe how normal like games of service games work? Like, new content comes in regularly and gets added in?
Because Blizzard is Blizzard, that doesn't work that way. We have to package it.
I would love to.
Sorry, incorrect. It does work that way. It's just that.
Oh yeah, it works way outside the house, in the real world, but in the house,
it works that way for all the other Blizzard games. It's just a unique circumstance. Overwatch means it doesn't work right now for Overwatch.
Yeah,
but it does actually work out. Like, fucking Hearthstone just got a new game mode, for fuck's sake. They're still getting regular content all the time. Same as well. Anyway,
correct.
With that, the final thing I'll say about the apocalypse is don't have children. Like, what the fuck? That's the dumbest thing you can do in an apocalypse, is have a kid. Like, how many apocalypse stories and entertainment and movies it's ruined because of some kid is born in an apocalypse, and that just, like, and then it cries and the zombies come and kill you. It's like, come on, you are really not going to live and survive if you have a kid in an apocalypse. This is one of the things that will absolutely ruin you. So if you want to live, don't have kids.
I mean,
so that's that.
They're probably, like, if you're running away from zombies, like, giving it a little trip and having the ability to run faster, like, it's a pretty good survival tactic,
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I was hurt, okay? I started out the podcast saying I was hurt.
You did warn us.
You didn't leave me too much to work with there. So I'm just gonna pretend that didn't happen.
How about them player transfers, boys?
And now we're gonna go over to actual
Look there, little
later.
Timmy.
Oh, look, we beat the timer by 6 minutes, guys. Crazy that. Not almost an hour later, we're finally gonna get to the meat and potatoes of what we're here for. Start with teams that we didn't really talk about last week. So context, welcome to the podcast, and now we're going to talk about Overwatch League transfers, contracts, free agency, etc. We're going to go through it team by team. Not every single team is going to get talked about. I'm sorry. If you're just here for a very specific team, go to the timestamp and that'll be there. But knowing us, we're going to be weaving in and out of a couple different lanes at several points because especially Yiska loves to drag us off topic. So
That's how my brain works.
Let's start with the Atlanta Reign, where we didn't talk about them at all last week because nothing had been announced, no information was given at all. Now looking at the contract database, which is just the webpage, it is Edison free agent contract expired. Kai's been re-signed under a new contract. Pelican's option has been exercised, but it's heavily rumored to be eventually traded. So his option being exercised is probably similar to Yaki in that he's been retained for a buyout and trade value. To be seen. That's the rumor anyway. Gator and Hawk have signed under new contracts as similar to Kai. Iris and Masa are now free agents, with Iris's contract having been Masa's team option declined. So they have only retained technically 4 players, but I suspect only actually 3 in Kai, Gator, and Hawk.
Yeah. I think that's the big exception that kind of paints where Atlanta seems to be moving. Is, obviously we've heard reports and rumors that they're looking at, certain players from the West. I think, again, the big exception is Pelican. And maybe we can open this up to the floor, exploring both worlds of, do they trade Pelican? Should you keep Pelican? Is it worth any kind of weird logistical balancing act where it's you're kind of by yourself? Do you still want to play here? Do you want to play full? Do you want to be on a fully Korean team? Is there something that, do they want to still invest in trying to facilitate that? I don't know what's the best case scenario, because obviously you want to keep the rookie of the year, right? I think in a perfect world, that's something that you want to keep.
Yeah.
Do you? Because maybe you do, but let's reference Brad's tweet real quick. Brad, head coach of Atlanta Reign. He says, when a player makes a heartfelt request, you do everything in your power to accommodate it. That is heavily implied. Yet we are kind of reading between the lines here. It is implied to be talking about Pelican requesting to be traded.
Yeah. Yeah. To where, though?
Where
would he go? This communicates 3 things. There's 3 things I think it could be. And this is honestly no leaks. I have no behind-the-scenes info on this, but 3 things it could be. 1, it could be Seoul. This kid has been through some health issues, and probably wants to stay in Korea just to be taken care of there. Probably wants to be close to family. Let's be honest, this kid was an absolute fucking trooper throughout the season, playing with collapsed lungs and what was it, collapsed lung? Am I imagining?
Yeah. So. Yeah.
Even just the one lung, I think.
Considering travel with this, this kid is nuts, right? In terms of what he's able to or wanting to do for a team. So I think it makes a lot of sense for him to say, okay, I want to stay in Seoul. Which other team is very likely going to stay in Seoul? Philly. So that's the second team I could see, which is probably more likely than Seoul because Seoul has profits, and that's do you want to play behind profits or with
they
profits?
Are in the market.
I'm not sure if that you would love that. And then the third one, and this one has me half-mast, is that he wants to team up with Proper again. And whatever team he goes
wherever
to,
they go,
they want to play with each other. I'm not sure if there's even a friendship or whatever. It could also be some other thing like this, where it's he wants to be connected to a personal relationship that we don't know about and wants to reteam, and this guy is going there. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if it was just in Korea again.
Yeah.
So
why not do a mix of both? There's a team out there that has consistently high expectations every season, that has the money, at least assumedly, to spend on a championship roster that has never really won anything. Why not put them both on Philly, right? Why not do both of those options?
I think we talked about this last week. Where we were just this is probably what should happen. But it's very okay. We've got a process of elimination here. It's very likely that Pelican probably wants to play on a Korean team in Asia, ideally in Korea. You've already talked about the health issues there, which are probably quite important. So that's number one. When you start to look at who's going to be in APAC, you have your standard 5 APAC teams plus Fusion who are potentially staying. Then that's the options. It's not going to be Chengdu. There's a Chinese team.
Oh.
He probably, I have to imagine, would prefer to be on a team that's in Korea physically rather than going to China.
Sure.
It's probably not going to be Shanghai just because they have their roster locked up. And Shanghai, I mean, they don't need him. I'm going to be clear. They really don't. They have 3 DPS already, and the flip duo, the flitter lip duo is so powerful that I don't think you want to touch that at all, to be honest with you. So Shanghai, Chengdu eliminate from the equation. You got the 2 Zhou teams in charge in Hangzhou Spark. Could he go to either of those? I'm sure they would like him. You pair him up with Choi Se-hwan, powerful, with Eileen as well, really a powerful trio there. You put him with Architect Shy, could be a powerful trio there as well. But again, the question will be, does Pelican really want to go to a team based in China? So then you have Seoul, where, as Yiska said, there's the Prophets duo that already exists. To be fair, it's a similar argument where like you could make a trio out of Prophets plus Pelican, which is similar to where he'd be if he was on any of the 2 Zhou teams. He would be in Korea, so that's quite attractive. So that's a good shout. And then who's left after that? Whoever I mentioned, we got the 4 Chinese team done and dusted. That's Solgan. So it's just Philly left then. Philly's left. But for anyone asking, what about New York? It's not entirely clear what New York State is. If New York do stay in APAC and stay in Korea, there's an option where he teams up with Flora. That's pretty hot. But when you really look at it and where the stars could be aligning, Fusion have a lot of empty spaces on their team as far as DPS goes. It's just Carpe right now, and you can build a damn good team with Pelican there. Put in with Carpe, maybe an extra in there, and who the hell knows. So, Eric's just said Valiant. Let's be clear that's not happening. So we can forget about that for a second. And as far as we know, it doesn't look like any teams joining APAC, but never say never.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's probably what it looks like. But we spent a lot of time on Pelican. What about the rest of the team? I mean, we talked about the fact that they've retained 3 players, and it's looking like they'll go for Western. They're rumored to be picking up American Tornado players. So this could be a team that is rumored to have Kai, Nero, Gator, Hawk, Ultraviolet, OG as their 6-man core.
I like that team. And I think a lot of people are initially going to be very bullish on that team, especially fans of Contenders. But I have a funny feeling Atlanta's going to follow like the same playbook. Or it's not even their playbook. It's just like what they get painted. Where it's just like the community like undervalues them in like retrospect or in the background of like the entire Overwatch League, where there's like so many like crazy signings and so many crazy trades. It's just like, yeah, okay, that's the Western team that ends up doing extremely well at the end of the season, who does well in playoffs, who does probably end up winning a tournament. I think Atlanta probably just ends up overperforming expectations like they always have, with a fully Western roster. I do believe that. I do kind of read the tea leaves there.
I like context. They just came second in the Overwatch League.
Yeah,
that's the benchmark set now. I dare say, like, it's highly likely that whatever next result they get might end up just having to be worse than that, because people will argue, and I may even agree, that there could be some downgrades if you get anybody in that's after Pelican. Might feel like a bit of a downgrade. I think Nero is a great player, but
sure.
Pick
is it Pelican?
Pick between Nero and Pelican. Who are you choosing?
Yeah,
seriously,
exactly.
You're probably choosing Pelican. You look at the other players as well. Dude, Master played out of his mind this year. Such a good talent. OG is probably good, but is he better than Master? I'd pick Master personally. Iris versus Ultraviolet. To be fair, I haven't seen too much of Ultraviolet. But dude, Iris was in contention this year to be like someone on on or close to a level of
Yeah.
having impact like Shu. You know, he's being talked in the same sentence as Shu,
Sure.
right? Whether you actually believe that to be true or not is up to you. Your in terms of where your opinion is. But he was a highly regarded player in terms of what Irish is bringing to the team. So we're talking about some big pieces, Lou, that are being let go from Atlanta, that are leaving Atlanta, where this is the team that took you to second place, and I don't know that they're gonna have a team that can do that again, because now that you've reached that target, it feels like that becomes your benchmark for where you'd like to be in future as well.
I think that's where it should be. I just don't know if that's where the community kind of places them, if that makes sense. That, and I think that I would value. We have to kind of take into consideration that we're also going into a new game, and I would make the process as easy as possible and creating not a team that definitely it sounds like it's trying to undermine the 2021 reign, and that's not the case, but trying to take the path of least resistance and transitioning into a new title, I think, is very important, and I like where Atlanta specifically is headed. Yes, individually they may have some downgrades, but in the context of a new game, I don't know if that necessarily holds up. I don't know if it holds up when we look at the overall strength of the league, right? There's a lot of like variables that we have to kind of hand wave away that could result in them ending up, in a similar position. Maybe not as high, but in a similar position.
Here's what I'll concede is I think Brad has a good eye for talent.
Yep.
And that he does a great job of signing rookie talent. He's got a proven record of finding good rookie talent. So
Yep.
I've got a lot of trust in him for that. But that's pretty much Atlanta. It's a lot of a look and wait and see kind of situation. Although wouldn't be surprised if most of the teams are going to end up being a bit of a wait and see sort of situation. Final note for Atlanta is that Dongman, their play manager / translator for the team, is also gone. He's LFT, which further emphasizes and further adds to the rumor that Atlanta are more than likely going full Western. Like, if you've gotten rid of your Korean translator, then I mean, you're not going to need one if you're all speaking English, are you? So that's Atlanta done. Boston Uprising, where I think we briefly touched on them last week, but they've made some. Now we can talk further about where they are in terms, because we didn't have this info last time. But Gableshe is actually still on the team under his existing contract. So I believe last week we were assuming that Punk was coming back and Gableshe wasn't.
Yeah.
And actually, they're both coming back. Punk had his option exercised, so he's been re-signed. Gableshe's on his existing contract. Valentine has had his option exercised, and Faith had his option exercised. So there's 3 players that are exercising their +1, and 1 player that's just continuing their current contract. Everyone else either got declined or their contract expired. So they currently still have 4 players. It's 1 more than what we thought last week. And what it does mean is that probably not looking for another tank. You've got 2 off-tank players. Between Gableshe and Punk, you're looking to cover all of Overwatch 2's tank options from those 2 alone. No man tanks, by the way, but maybe you don't need one. Who knows? Maybe they're setting a precedent, if anything, which I'm sure Yiska's keen to get into, which is that teams are not really looking at main tanks. They're looking at a lot of off tanks.
Yeah, like it's the worst time of the year to be a main tank, right? Like, or possibly the worst time ever, right? Like, if Eric wants to bring up the graphic, like, he crunched some numbers, and if memory serves right, it's like, if you look at the sheer talent, the contract roster contract sheet, of course, this is not the final product, but it definitely constitutes a trend towards like what career security for main tanks looks like at the moment, right? So we're looking at the numbers, and I'll put this on so you guys can follow along. But so in terms of those that stayed, just like look at the sheer numbers in comparison to everyone else. So like, if I'm reading this correctly, is it only 20% in terms of so 30% in terms of the main tanks, but then compare that to every other role, of course, right? And it's, I don't know, like, yes, like it makes some sense that because you're getting rid of a tank, of course. This was always going to be the case. But it also seemed the logical case that you were going to keep 2 tanks because like it's the most volatile role, and you kind of needed to like in my mind that's the role that you'll probably double setting up, like if you have to sign 6 players because you don't know what's coming. That hasn't crystallized yet, and to be fair, it's probably also going to be one of the roles that's going to be more signed as we progress and have a better idea what main tank will even look like. But still, dude, like, I mean, it somehow validates the emotions that tank players had when that news came out. It's not just that they're losing their way of play and don't have an off tank or a main tank to coordinate with within their role, and their game is going to significantly change. It's also that it really like jeopardizes their career security. And let's be honest, like just by the fact that you're not being picked up now and you can't even play the game that you eventually want to be a pro player on, that must be massively fucking with your mental at this point, right? Like you don't know if you're going to be picked up next year for an Overwatch League team. So in general, like it's such an unfortunate state of affairs. And I don't even know how you can, like, you gotta really be in love or out of options to really stick with it if you're like a tier 2 main tank and just like try to get picked up, because like your chances got slashed in half pretty much. And now you're trying to be a pro player in a game you probably won't have access in for the longest time, while your direct competitors for the role can sooner than you are, possibly. We don't know yet. So I don't know. This is one of the children that you have to cut off. Just like there's not enough food, bro. Like what can you do, right?
Fucking zombies.
Yeah, for sure. Fucking zombies. I'm gonna hop off the fence. I think I've established myself as a perennial fence sitter. Asterisk this, parentheses that. I think the manufactured exodus of the main tank is definitely something that's gonna bite a lot of Overwatch teams in the ass. I look at the game and I know it's going to be different in the long run. 100% it's going to be different, and you're going to need a lot of flexibility. And maybe that's something that main tank has never been asked. But especially with the first season of a new title, you have to pull from a base of information that's so small that and again, maybe my pea brain, my smooth, monkey brain only can see Overwatch 1 as the archetype, the skeleton that you're going to work from going into a brand new season in a new game. I don't think, or at least I hope that many teams are very quick, if it's the case, to sign a lot of these main tanks that have been left out in the dark. I think again, this manufactured exodus of main tanks is going to bite a lot of teams in the ass. And I don't know that like the double flex signing is going to pay off.
It's a risk because you don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know yet. The safe thing to do would be to retain one of each.
Yeah.
But if we go back to what I said last week, I said that the ideal scenario for every single team, and we're playing like very heavily like perfect world ideals here, is that you want only one tank that plays everything, ideally. And, if you're keeping double off tanks, then you're giving yourself at least an option with a second player, but these guys will have to be picking up main tank roles. Well, they have to be picking up main tank heroes to extend their hero pool. So the safe way to do it would be to retain one of each, and they both dip into each other's pools, and they both learn from each other. They just learn the opposite role. Whereas here, if neither player ends up being able to successfully pick up those main tank positions properly, or those main tank heroes properly, you could be in trouble. But you also might not be. Like, you could be lucky as shit as well, where like opening beta meta is heavily off tank favored in terms of those heroes instead of the main tank heroes. So who knows? Maybe you get super lucky that maybe like Sigma is the prime tank hero to play because he simply does everything. And guess what? You've got two off tanks that really know how to play Sigma well, especially Punk. He's well known for his Sigma. you're good. You're good to go. Like you've lucked out heavily, but it's a full gamble. Everyone's gambling. I
Yeah.
mean, all Joe, all and
Of
all of
course.
this,
Yeah.
all of this for roster construction is gambling across the board. I even talked last week about the fact that I would gamble on doing double flake support. Now Boston don't have anyone else outside of those 4 players. They have one main support. So they've actually gambled on a main support player. Funny enough, they didn't gamble on Myeongbong. They kept faith. And I think Yiska, you explained last week that Boston have very, I don't want to use the pun of saying high faith in faith, but like
Yeah.
they have a lot of they definitely buy into the stocks for faith a lot.
Yes.
And then beyond that, like Valentine, super flexible player. Color Hex, I don't know if he has the personal skill level anymore. I don't want to. I don't know. I'm not going to speak out of my ass either. He might actually still be pretty good, but he didn't get a lot of opportunities this year. And then I'm 37, who is probably a bit more of a rigid player in terms of hero pool. He's very much a specialist, so I get it. You keep your generalist player and probably your of the available options who was probably your star DPS of the year anyway in Valentine, and then you move on with that. As far as we can tell, Laurie has been kept onto the team. And I have to imagine they were probably okay with Laurie's performance, even though his team definitely didn't play. Definitely, Boston probably fell below expectations regards, but maybe they're happy with the coaching, so they don't want to touch that right now. Boston, by the way, is probably one of the areas that is maybe the only place that, options from outside of NA can really land onto. I'm looking at maybe some more overlooked Korean players could jump onto Boston. I actually could see Boston being the type of team that could take a shot on Chinese players. They wouldn't spend a lot on them, but they could be a team that looks at a Chinese player that's not otherwise going to pick them, be saying like, hey, we can give you something close to minimum, but that's about it. But to be fair, that's better than what you're currently getting, which is no offers, because probably a lot of teams are not looking at Chinese players at all, right? So Boston could be doing that. Boston are famous as a team for actually looking beyond the obvious options and going for other options that people do not look at for a number of reasons. A, because from a value and financial standpoint, that makes a lot of sense as far as price goes. And then B, they've been another one of those teams that have really gone out of their way to try and scout further and more properly than most teams would. And they benefit of that. They've sold a lot of their own players, their own good players, to a lot of other teams in the Overwatch League through good scouting. So I don't see that changing anytime soon. It's probably the only place that Australian players can go anyway. But unfortunately, Adam probably can't join the team because Punk's already there and Gable, she's in that slot, so that's going to be a dead end. Same with Dank. But maybe a player like Nami, who's looking reasonable, but will still be a gamble. Could get signed for a minimum. I don't know. Boston is probably going to be a landing place for a lot of. I don't want to say like refugees of Overwatch, but in a way, they kind of have that reputation.
Yeah.
Were you surprised that I mean, I get stand one not being re-signed because like unknown tank situation, whatnot, and especially like if you already have Galbushi on an existing contract, you probably don't want 3 tanks on that. That makes perfect sense to me. Myeongbong was surprising. Like, this is not like contract expired, this dude is now looking for a new team.
That they chose.
This is option declined. Right?
I think that's a mistake. Unless Laurie's out here trying to, make handshake deals and is already kind of.
You don't know the full story. It could be that Myeongbong asked for $1 million. I don't know.
Sure, yeah, that's true.
I mean, he can't. Right?
Oh, because it's an extension of his.
Yeah, it would have been a +1.
Right, yeah, it's a +1, which means it would have been extending his current contract.
Or he's just asked to leave.
Sure.
Or they're like, okay, yeah, I guess we'll just.
Could have been a personal reason.
Yeah.
Because you're not wrong. That is weird. That is a weird thing. I would have imagined that Myeongbong was a good shot going to the next game. I think flex support's a more attractive options to start with.
Yeah.
But they didn't exercise this option at all.
Yeah.
Could it be that Myeongbong can Myeongbong decline his own option? Actually, that could be a thing. Does he think he could have a better shot in the free agent pool? I don't know.
Thing is, like, Boston has always been like an economic roster. And I would imagine, like, if they thought Myeongbong commands like some sort of buyout, that they just sign him on and try to get some money for him, even though, like, unfortunately, the talent pool in flex support is very stacked. I think you can make a very dispassionate move here. Even though I will say, I'm not sure what's happening, of course, but like the way Myeongbong stuck through the misery into this season and believed in the project again should probably give him some goodwill with the organization. But theoretically, you could make the dispassionate calculation and say, let's not pick up his option. There's a ton of like qualified high-level flex supports on the market. It's probably not going to be super expensive. And I mean, we don't have to employ him during the off season as well. So like maybe there's a more economical choice where we might even get a slight upgrade, because like keep in mind, like guys like Twilight are now on the free agency market, right? And Iris and Jonak, like there's some big heavy hitters in there, and yet now like Gangjun is he officially released yet?
He's VFA as well, yeah.
Yeah,
Kareev's in there. I know some people don't think Kareev's good, but I think he's reasonable. I think he can still make a shot. But you're right. Yeah, there's a lot of and then there's all the contenders players.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You can believe that contenders' career, their flex support pool goes deep. There's a lot of damn good. Even players that are on like pretty poopy teams in contenders' career, but individually are just phenomenal. You got like freaks like Quasad that exist, who, for all intents and purposes, wasn't on the best team this year, but my goodness, is he still individually able to just really do a lot. He can still pull through. You got guys like Aim God, who some people might say is washed, but could still be a reasonable look. You know, and then beyond that, you got Krillin, who had a very short-lived career in London before going back into contenders from T1. So it's just such a deep pool for flex support talent in contenders' career. I actually think the more I look into this is not weird at all. This is actually probably a smart move by Huck and Boston, because the pool for flex supports, especially good ones, are so deep that even if you can't get your first 5 options, which is a lot, by the way. Let's say you don't get the first 5 because they all get scooped up. Twilight gets scooped up easily. You know, Iris might get scooped up easily. Jonak is gone, whatever. You go 5 or 6 players down the list. That number 5 or 6 players is still damn good for you if you're Boston.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah, I don't know. Like, maybe you're just feeling very economically minded. Let's not exclude the option that maybe something internally didn't work out. And no leak, but this is always like an option, and definitely like very often the case when weird moves happen behind the scenes. So this
doesn't always have to be bad either. It's just he wanted to explore his options. It's a real possibility, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he could request to be released.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's still up to the team on whether they take his option or not.
Also,
he can request to be released, and the team can still take his option and not release him.
Yeah.
So it's up to the team at the end of the day.
There's also a third option, by the way, which Eric also pointed out. It makes a lot of sense. A lot of Overwatch League contracts have a salary increase when you pick up the +1, meaning like each year is more. So if you're confident that this guy will just be hovering in the FA pool, you can probably just say, well, you can't play for us again, just with the old salary, you know? And then these guys are able to join, and it's not the cleanest way, for sure. Like, but like that's just how the market works.
Do like a thing where almost like Space, where he's a free agent, but the team is probably planning on re-signing him. They give him an offer, and then so Boston could do a thing where they decline Myeongbong's option. He goes into the FA pool, and then they give him an offer again that is equal to what he got this season. To be honest, they could, if Boston want to be really snaky about it, they could even make it lower. And then just see what Myeongbong does. You can come back for the offer that we give you. We've declined your option, but we'll still give you an offer for a new contract, and then you can just see how you go, or you can remain a free agent. And there's a risk involved there for Boston as well, where if they did do that hypothetically, Myeongbong could actually get a better offer elsewhere, and then Boston would lose him. So, you know, there's give and take there. Not implying that is actually what Boston are doing. Probably what they are doing is what we said in the first place, which is that the FS position is mega stacked, and that by releasing Myeongbong and not taking the option, they can potentially get an upgrade, which is more than likely. So Boston done and dusted. There's not too much there for Boston. Just that one extra play in GBS and talking a little bit about what's going on with the Melbong. Next team was Chengdu Hunters. Oh boy, there's a lot here actually because we had no info on Chengdu at all, and they come back. And my man Luke, the GM of Chengdu, has just said, "You know what? 9 of you can come back to this team." They have given how many? Let's have a look at this. Jimmy still here under the same contract. Jimmu's been re-signed on a new contract. Leave has been re-signed under a new contract. He probably got a fucking bag. He better have. If he's on a new contract, he's like, motherfucker, I'm the MVP. You better give me a giant pay raise. Taro Cookie's been retained under the existing contract. Ameng is gone. His contract has been is expired. Gaga is retained under the current contract. Late Young has had his option declined. Farway, Monk, and Nisha have all had their contract, are all still under their current contracts, and Yveltal has had his option exercised. So there is a lot here. We have 4 DPSs on this team still, 4 supports on this team still, and 1 tank for the time being.
There's a bunch of surprises in here for me. Like, holy shit, does Chengdu love their 2+1s, right? Like, how many guys of those were on existing contracts? Jesus Christ, dude. That's not at all usual. Usually, give it like to your heavy guys, give them some stability. They just give it to everyone.
Why is on a 2-year contract? What's up with that?
I don't know.
What?
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Yeah, it's a weird one. Like, usually you want like for the team to have some optionality and just say, well, we don't really need you anymore.
Is he on a 2-year? Wasn't he signed halfway through the year?
Yeah.
Does that mean his contract only started halfway through the year or only expire halfway through next year?
No, they usually
I don't understand how that works.
No, I think it's just season end set by Blizzard, which is was October dates, right?
Right,
like,
so if you join halfway through the season, your 1-year contract still only applies for the current season.
Yes.
So how it works? Okay.
Yes, and I think my understanding is like you get an annualized rate. So it's not like you sign on for 50K minimum and then you get the 50K in the 4 months you might be signed. That's not how it works. It's an annualized salary, right? So, but yes, it is very weird to have existing contracts because like this is only good for players, theoretically speaking, especially if you're not a top performer, right? Because keep in mind, like a 1+1 still gives the team all the optionality that they want. They can have you for 2 years. But yeah, so that was the first very interesting aspect of this. Second interesting aspect of this is Yveltal option exercised. Now, what happened there pretty publicly, and I think like maybe it's just this cultural thing because Hangzhou had this as well, like just washing some dirty laundry outside in the open and just like making it all known. Like, by the way, this is not like it's not like we don't have dirty laundry in all the other teams. They're just like keeping hush about it, right? And then it cracks at the seams in some of those situations, right? But like that was a pretty public fallout. That said, Yveltal, low-key, was actually one of the best made supports in the league. Like statistically fucking nuts.
When he was good, yes, correct.
Right? Like, and it's like, hopefully, like he turns it around, and this was like the wake-up call, because sometimes you can be shocked into proper behavior by just like that being publicly known that you're an asshat, and then you can change your ability, your behavior by, you know, the heat that was created through this being publicly known. It makes it much easier to forge your habits and into good new habits. So that one was very interesting to me. And then, like, okay, did Late Young retire? Was that one of the retirees?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
Interesting. And Ameng or Ameng contract expiring is also interesting.
Expired.
Yeah. I don't know if you just keep him on as a team mascot and give him like minimum.
Well, I think he can test the free agency pool and just be like, but then again, like Charge have Rio, Goosh Ray still Goosh, but there's 3 tanks on Hangzhou. We're gonna get to them a little bit later, so forget about that. So who else is left? I mean, no other teams will take Chinese players. Shanghai's out of the question. So yeah, Ameng only has one option. It's just Chengdu, unless somebody in the NA teams wants to take a risk. Ameng's probably one of the more high-profile Chinese players, so
Yeah.
he'd be potentially worth the risk. But I don't know. I don't know if any NA teams would go for that, which means he's probably done. Unless they re-sign him. But I think Chengdu have such a monopoly. Well, they don't quite. They still compete with Hangzhou in a way of securing Chinese players, but they have. I think they're the preferred team. If you're a Chinese player, you probably prefer to go to Chengdu. So there's options there. They can take their free picking of any Chinese tank plane coming up, main tank or off tank. What I find surprising is I had this huge discussion. We had this big discussion last week about what I think main supports and flex supports are going to be like in Overwatch 2, and I think flex supports are more valuable. They've maintained two main supports here. Like, maybe they just believe in the system of this kind of like, two duos thing happening, or just the flexibility of having 4 supports that you can swap around. But I had to have imagined that with how public and how poor the relationship it seemed between Yveltal and the team, that they would have been him for sure. And just kept Nisha on as the main player, and then have Monk and Fireway fill the rest of the spots. I think that's pretty safe. We're more than likely to have double flex supports, so Monk and Fireway can do that. And then if that ends up not being the case and main supports are still relevant, Nisha can come in and play there. But I think if you bet on Fireway Monk, you're probably doing the right thing. Retaining Nisha and Yveltal, especially Yveltal, weird to me. That being said, if Chengdu just have the money and they just whatever, we're just going to throw money at everybody because we don't care. Sign 12 players, just sign an infinite amount of players. It doesn't really matter. But I'm looking at it from the lens of how normal teams would operate, which is to say, for a 5v5 game, you might only want how many people max? 8 players max?
Yeah.
This is one more than 8, to be fair, but this is including the fact that they don't have a second tank option, and most teams would probably want a tank backup, because they don't have that. Damage-wise as well, I would have imagined that you're making space for a Pritter. How does a Pritter fit into this situation if you've got 4 DPS already? A Pritter is like the hottest prospect in Chinese DPS coming through from Chinese contenders, and he's already a Team Chaser player, which is the academy team with Chengdu. He's in the pipeline to be Leave's duo partner in DPS for next year. But you've got 3 other people that are still there. Now, there's the argument that, okay, well, Taro Cookie and Jimmy are just under their existing contract, so what do? They're still contracted. I'm pretty certain that if Chengdu was smart and they only signed these guys to 1 year, they could have just let them go. I would have been both of them and gotten a Pritter immediately. Jimmu, a Pritter, Leave. That's my trio, and just don't touch that any further.
Yep.
But Jimmy and Taro Cookie are still there because their contracts are apparently 2+1s.
Yeah.
It is bizarre. That is bizarre. That was definitely something I hadn't considered, is like, how does a Pritta fit into this, equation, or is he at all?
No,
I genuinely wonder.
I mean, theoretically, yes, they could sell him to someone, but I think what this actually means is just like, Taro Cookie, Jimmy, have fun in contenders. 2-way, goodbye. Right?
Is there contenders?
Yeah.
Don't know.
We just talked about for an hour about the fact that there might not be contenders.
Is there an ounce of your soul that cares about Taro Cookie?
God bless.
I don't think he should have been signed. He shouldn't have been signed. It's a lot of 2020 hindsight there.
Yeah.
But, bro, and if you do sign him, why did you give him 2 years?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. Yeah.
Chengdu had to have known they were looking at a Pritter next year. Surely they had to have known that. Like, you've clearly fucked up if you've given Taro Cookie and Jimmy 2 years, knowing that, like, hang on a second, a Pritter is going to be available. Should we maybe not, like, leave the option for that to happen? They've just not given themselves any position. So what's going to probably end up happening is they're going to have 5 DPS players if they want to win.
There's just going to be a lot of bench warmers, which sucks. That's a lot of budget being burned, but the fact that you were throwing around 2-year contracts, I think, like, maybe that should be taken into consideration. I don't know. I did like where Ever was going with Ameng, though. I think there's a sleeper pick that, like, NA historically had like woefully bad balls, and I like I like
What
a
they need
team
is
to take a
Manscaped.
gamble.
Dallas.
Exactly. Yeah. Promo code Tactical Crouch. I'd
No,
love to see
Dallas is
Ameng
all
make a
Korean,
move.
bro. Come
Yeah,
on.
that would be tough.
Stop
I think that
capping.
would put a big
Dallas.
wrench into things.
No, it's a typical Dallas signing. It's PR, and you need a ball. That's the chips signing right there.
Stop.
This is how I know that Yiska absolutely didn't watch the Overwatch Watch 2 footage, because Harbin was playing ball. Fearless, for whatever reason, wasn't playing in those games. Harbin was, and Harbin's ball, just from a mechanical standpoint, I know it's a pug, and I know not all the players were taking it fully seriously, but whatever. Just looking at only his mechanics, kind of solid. Like, Jesus Christ, Harbin could have been the ball player for Dallas this year, no cap. Like, that's a real thing. I'm not even joking. If they had another off-tank player, Harbin could have legitimately started on ball this year. His mechanics look individually clean enough to do so.
That makes sense.
So no, I mean he'd be joining Dallas only for PR, which is like sad. So I actually no cap think he might go to Boston. No, when I say I think he might, I mean like that's where I see things for.
Yeah.
Because I just explained that Boston are a team that could take a chance, but they have 2 tanks. I think Boston are also smart enough to not overcommit. You're not gonna dude. I'm about to roast Hangzhou for signing 3 tanks. You know, Boston can't be doing that and making the same mistake.
True. Yeah.
So it's not gonna happen unless they're keeping GBS for trade value. He's actually still. They could be trading GBS. Maybe they're smart.
It's possible.
They're not going to hold on to 2 off tanks. They want to maintain on an off tank, but the options for Ameng is pretty damn limited.
You know where I think he ends up, and this is really sad to say, but like you're saying, there's really no room.
No, I'm joking.
I mean, that'd be great. I think NA deserves a good ball player. Yeah, I think he just ends up on the Valiant. I think he's just going to be left late. I think they're going to go, hey, great PR move. Let's sign Ameng. We love Ameng, right, guys? And it's going to suck, and it's going to feel really bad.
Ameng on the Valiant. You're assuming Valiant stay in China, by the way, which is
true. Yeah, we don't know.
So nothing too much further from Chengdu. It's just a weird situation all around. I think the roster size is bloated as shit in the weirdest parts, and not at all secure in other positions. Yeah, maybe they get another tank player. They could get Kadoma. They could get Riven. They could get whatever. But for now, it do be looking like just Gaga. So let's go on to where I brought up Houston earlier. I was like, yeah, maybe Amon goes to Houston. No, Houston actually have a tank player there already. Oh, actually, it's not entirely impossible. If Houston want 2 tank players, give Piggy a friend. That could be the thing. But
you have to, right?
Houston are in an interesting spot because they have had multiple contracts expired. They did the normal thing, and they didn't just sign their entire roster to 2 years. Just by the way, Dante and Happy especially was not on a 2-year, and this is fucking Happy we're talking about. And Tarakuhi was on a 2-year, just to put things into perspective. So Dante, Happy, KSF all have the contracts expired. I'm pretty sure KSF is retiring anyway. Dreamer and Django had their options declined. Piggy had his option exercised. Frimzo had his contract expired. And he's probably one of the more, I would say, well-regarded Western players, especially in the flex support position. So he's actually potentially a good prospect. Juby had his option declined, and Jake's contract expired. But Jake could still do a lot. He could coach. He can play. He can do whatever. Houston have at this point only retained 1 player. They've essentially done the same thing as New York Excelsior and Toronto and the Mayhem. They kept 1 player and everyone else is gone.
Yeah.
Piggy of everybody.
Yeah, that's weird.
Of everybody. I don't know what happened with that main tank core. I could not tell you. It's a bizarre situation all around. I have to assume select members of the DPS probably are in talks now with the org and trying to get them back on contract. Obviously, their contract expired. Do they want to stay? Do they want to go? They have some options to weigh out. That's the weird one, is Piggy. Of all the declines, granted, there's not too many of them. Obviously, Juby probably is the one that's like a little bit more questionable. But why not just get rid of it all? Why not just bin it
I would
all
keep
and just
Dante.
start over?
I'd keep Dante. Why
Well,
would
you
not keep
can't.
Dante?
That's the
right.
issue because
sorry,
he's
sorry.
exactly
His contract is so okay. So of the
declines. Who would you keep? I feel like the main tank. I didn't hate Jungkook. I just don't know what the hell happened.
Now that I'm looking at under that context, you probably have to keep Piggy because the trend is that teams are bidding the main tanks, keeping the off tanks. And everyone else said the contract expired. I think that if the option was available, you would do the +1 for Dante.
Yes,
Dante to me is one of the players that has the highest capability of being that super flexible player, picks up whatever you need. He's that Swiss Army knife player, and one of the top Western prospects as well.
Yeah.
So that's my go-to guy. I wouldn't be surprised if Houston will throw a contract his way anyway, just to see if they can get him. But Dante will obviously test the free agency pool now that he is a free agent.
He is kind of a homer as well. Like he's been with Houston for a little bit now. If memory serves, since season 1, am I remembering that right? Since season 2, when did he go to Houston? Did he get traded? He got traded, right, for Smurf.
He traded from Shock to Houston.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
long time ago now. Feels.
I think he can kind of end up being like a franchise player for them, if he so chooses to do that. Right. Obviously, he's in the free agent pool. Yeah, I don't know, man.
Season 1, I believe.
Yeah, I believe so.
So
I think Piggy in general, like, I do agree that like flex tanks probably should be valued a little bit higher than main tanks, but Piggy in particular, like as a case study, I didn't really see his flexibility. We saw his Sigma and it was great. And I think that like those statistics shrouded him in some weird talk for Rookie of the Year. But outside of that, I was not all that impressed at like a top level.
Who said Piggy was going to be Rookie of the Year?
I don't just ask around. I didn't agree with it, but
who the hell is saying that? Please, no, come on.
I mean, he could have been very good in like had we kept more Sigma metas, I think he could have been very good.
Yeah, in one hero.
I mean, that's a lot of people on like
agreed, yes.
On ballots, right? Like
in the past. These days, this year you can't be an MVP or Rookie of the Year on one hero.
No. Probably not that, but you can be a role star. Like almost all of tanks played like 95% diva.
Bro, guys like Hawk couldn't make the role star. I'm not too sure Piggy would have been close.
But I mean,
let's just be clear about that.
Did Hanbin get it? Yeah, right? I think he played 90% diva. I'm not saying he's like a one trick, and he definitely has a bit of Sigma than diva. Also, like he likes Sigma more, but like theoretically you can still on some positions get away with it, right? Like that's still possible to some extent.
If you pound so hard and you push your team into heights that they otherwise couldn't have reached, then I guess you have to give a nod. But other than that, I'm not too sure. The Pigma was strong, but that's what Houston have got currently. They have the Pigma, but I don't think Joe's too wrong about saying that. Could they have just been Piggy as well?
Been it all.
And just started from scratch.
Scrap it over. Yep.
And a lot of people, I think, looking at Houston, probably a lot of their own fans might be like, "Oh my God, why did we get rid of X and Y and Z?" But it's like, hang on, guys, just as a reminder, because I even slipped up here and I had to be reminded. Contracts expired.
Yes.
Can't do anything about that.
Yeah.
It's not that Houston don't want to keep Dante. His contract expired.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if maybe both Dante and Happy were being given an offer right now.
Sure, yeah.
But they will exercise their right of exploring free agency because they're literally a free agent now and they can test their market value. But it doesn't mean they won't go back to Houston. And I think a lot of people might need to just reapproach how they're thinking about this and be reminded of the fact that it's not because Houston just wanted to dump them.
Yep.
So
I think that's a trend that will happen a decent amount this season where
of course.
Like players will enter FA, will test the waters and then end up on their former teams. Again. Yeah. I think that's likely to happen in some cases.
All right, let's put Ameng on the Houston Outlaws to start. Spots open for him.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it, man.
Oh god.
That's like the big brain, like 1 in a million jackpot move that I don't think anybody's gonna do, but I think could like significantly make some splash for people.
Scrimzo had a tweet as well that sounded pretty final.
Yeah.
I won't read the whole tweet, but it says at the end, the final line says, "This door may have closed, but another one has opened."
Yeah.
What does that mean? Does it mean he's already got an offer from another team because he'd be going elsewhere? He basically thanked Houston, be like, "Thanks for giving me the opportunity, blah, blah, blah. This door may have closed, but another one has opened."
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge question mark to me. Like, what does that mean? Because maybe a team that's wanting to go Western, like Mayhem, will pick them up. I don't know. It's one of those things where Crimzo could have been on Atlanta as well. I don't know. Like, he's a good player. I think he'd be strange for him not to find a new home. So his contract expiring, I think he got a great situation where he played for a team, performed super well, and then had his contract expire without a +1, and now he can go into free agency and maybe get a pay rise somewhere else, or even
Yeah.
with his same team again.
It's almost like there's a Western team that's looking for a Western flex support.
A great situation with Crimzo all around.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Happy for him.
Not much more to add there. I think KSF's probably gone. I would expect to see Happy again somewhere. Juby's an interesting one. Not entirely sure. Jake is an interesting one as well. I speculated last week, where I put out into the ether the idea of, if you really want to get high value positions on your team, you can sign a player to be coach and player at the same time, which someone like Jake actually fits into. That's if you want to go like hard efficiency on your team. So I maybe that continues. I would have to imagine that Jake potentially wants to keep playing pro, being that a new game's about to come out, and it's a bit of a reset button for everybody. So even if you feel like you're falling behind or you might be starting to get a bit watched, a big reset button with a new game can kind of reinvigorate that a little bit and give you another shot. So take it while it lasts, really. Going forward to London Spitfire. They have basically expelled their team entirely outside of, what do we have here?
Sparker and Shax.
Yeah. Blase and Hybrid options declined. Sparker and Shax option exercised. Hardy and Molfig options declined. Calyx option declined. Ripper retired. So they had 1+1s and they've just completely removed the +1s and kept only Sparker and Shax. I think that's a good base to build from. So not bad from London Spitfire, but what are they going to do for the rest of the positions? Are they going to go look for contenders talent for new tanks? Maybe they can sign Ameng. I like that we're just trying to find a home for Ameng now. It's just like,
where's Ameng going? Give the Yoda chat a home.
Some reason we're trying very hard to find him a home of all players. But I don't mind keeping these two. I think this is a strong baseline. Probably their best 2 players of the year.
To kind of, reinforce your point with a lot of things that you've kind of like laid out in the ether, Avril, like you look at Overwatch 2 and how DPS focused the developers have kind of been, right? Like it's very clear that they want to make these heroes more lethal. So when you have somebody like Shax, who has been perennially underrated, and you've invested so much time into Sparker for good reason, this makes a lot of sense. These are, I would say, some great pieces to build around. I think this is a great start for a team with a new head coach coming in, a la Christopher, friend of the show. I like what I'm seeing thus far. Obviously, we're big on.
Oh yeah, Christopher's been signed as a head coach.
Yep.
The other thing.
Yep.
Yeah, I like a lot of the same things. I like where we've started. Let's see where we end up.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the problem is like it's the worst market to just be exclusively like Western, especially for a budget roster team.
Scrape that bottom of the barrel, huh?
Yeah, I'm not sure where this. It's hard, right? Like theoretically, you can once again make use of your academy team. Then again, like, are you now skeptical of the success of that, despite like you having one of the best contenders teams around, and then them bombing in season 4? Like, it's a lot of hard choices here. I mean, obviously you have Chris now, who probably brings his own new unique view. Also, I mean, Duck Duck Goose, Is
Going
someone
where I'm going?
is someone like Poco going to like run to the French, or is someone like Poco going to run after Christopher? So stuff like that, right? Like
Yeah.
that's
Look at Shockwave maybe coming home, or not really home, but close enough. Home region.
I don't.
I fear
are
that's
London
too
going,
high of a price
I was
tag.
going to say, are London going 7 players or 6? Because I mean, I'm looking at this as a situation where Shaq Sparker might be your only 2 DPS on this team. You get 2 tanks, 2 DPS, 2 supports. That's it.
Here, okay, here's
So
optimal scenario. You ready? Sparker Shax,
Yeah.
Poco,
Say it. Yeah.
Hardy. You resign Hardy.
Maybe.
Funny Astro,
Yeah.
and Provide. That's your best options, I think.
Not mad at it.
And then maybe you can look at like Falcon and whatnot, like
Yeah.
substitute somewhere. And Hardy is also an option, and don't necessarily. Maybe you just want Poco to play everything.
I think they should bring Gesture home.
Oh. She died.
I knew that was Chengdu. I knew that was Chengdu so hard.
Yeah, that was a full sentence.
Bring him back, baby. Bring him back.
Yeah. Get on my
Gesture
pub.
comes home.
No. I mean, to be fair, he said he wanted to retire, and that team is a retirement home, all right. Like, yeah, no, I don't think that's going to happen, Avril. I'm sorry.
No, okay. It'd be a fun meme though. It'd be funny as shit.
If they don't get him for some content in the future, I'd be a little sad.
Oh god. Most iconic London player. So they're gonna have to dig deep into this. The thing here is we are talking about Poco, Funny Astro, but if I'm Florida, I'm looking at Funny Astro first. In fact, if I'm Florida, I'm looking at Poco, Funny Astro if I can.
Yeah.
Any team that wants to go Western probably also wants them. So there could be a bidding situation for those players. Dude, if I'm Houston Outlaws, I'm looking at Funny Astro Poker. Fuck me, like Jesus Christ. And I know there's a possibility that they can definitely afford it more. Depending on what direction New York goes, they can take that option as well. So Shock can take that out. Jesus Christ, Shock can go Poker, Funny Astro. I think London, they're not going to be high enough for the picking order to secure those two. Right. Yeah. That's just my belief.
Out of all the names, I feel like EQO is probably the most likely, right? That kind of like fits the DPS like core, where it's like Shaq, Sparker cover most of your stuff, and then EQO slots in as the projectile.
I'm saying you only have 2 DPS on this team. I don't think they will go more than too far beyond the minimum. Very likely, Shaq Sparker is your only 2 DPS plays. Very likely. That's my belief.
Yeah. No, I definitely see where you're going.
And Nuki talked about, like, if she was to have, like, more than 6 players, it would be DPS that she would double up on. That was in our interview, I think.
Yes. So if you want if you want 7-man roster, then you would get a 3rd DPS.
Yeah.
But now we're talking about 2 bench players, 7-man roster for 5v5.
Yeah.
Is that what London want to do? I don't see them going there. I don't see them doing it. Personally.
No, I agree. Big agree.
I think they're more likely to be a 7-man team. A 6-man team. But maybe I don't hate the 7-man team. It's not actually not super unlikely. It's unlikely in my head, but it's not super unlikely, which means the possibility is there for 3rd DPS. But that's not even. I don't even think exploring the 3rd DPS options is a super worthwhile topic when there's not even supports and tanks lined up yet. That's like a more pressing matter for London Spitfire to fill in terms of the whole. So yeah, there's some things there that need to be addressed, and that's where potentially you're scraping a barrel, or there better be some crazy rookies available in Contenders EU or somewhere that they can look out for that, because any good Western potential player is going to be looking at Houston, is going to be looking at Shock, is going to be looking at Mayhem first. I dare say that unless London's wanting to drop some real cash, they again, I'll say it, they'll be low on the pecking order to get those players.
Yep. Agreed. Sadly, but
okay. So one of the players that is absolutely not low in the pecking order and can absolutely afford whatever they want is the Philadelphia Fusion, where they are looking at probably quite a significant rebuild. Fusion fans are probably a little bit upset at some of the players moving away, but I think they should be excited at the possibility of some great stuff coming their way. So Carpe's been retained under his existing contract. I believe he had like a 3-year contract or something. So he is going into his 3rd year of his 3-year contract. EQO has had his option declined. Rascal's retired. Shockwave had his option declined. Mano is retired for military service. Poco and Hopper had their contracts expired. Alarm has his option exercised. Funny Astro contract expired. Toby retired. Toby did say that he wants to go into coaching, so could make a return there, either on Fusion or another team. Speaking of coaching, by the way, T1's coach Jin has moved into Philadelphia now as, I believe, their head coach after 9K departing away. So there's a few movements here. 9K's gone. I believe based on what was said, rumor-wise, Fusion wanted to keep 9K, but he had a great offer from another team that actually paid his apparently monstrous buyout to get him away. And so they've lost their head coach. Jin comes in from T1. Jin is also the previous head coach. Was he head coach? He was the previous coach of the Guangzhou Charge in 2019, 2020. So there's that. T1 is, for those that don't know, the academy team of the Philadelphia Fusion. So they currently have Alarm and Carpe. Is that it?
Everybody else has been
Alarm Carpe.
or...
It's Alarm Carpe is all they have.
Yeah.
Plus Jin and their coach. So it's Alarm and Carpe, which opens up a lot of area to rebuild on.
Yeah. And I don't think this is the team to slow down in terms of like a budget. I think that they have been chasing a title for a long time, and will probably continue.
This team somehow made like half of Apex history retire this season. It's like, come on, man! Like, Rascal, Mano, and Toby, dude. Like, oof. That's yeah. I mean, I can totally see how that might have sapped your competitive spirits, like being so torn apart all season, also being picked up late and whatnot. Like, oof. But yeah, I mean, this is really solid in terms of like the ability to, like, if they are staying in Korea, which I'm assuming at this point, and they bring a lot of, like, still bring the same war chest and have Alarm and Carpe to build upon, and get, like, I think as soon as you get the ball rolling with this roster, and you can go to guys and go like, by the way, guys, we signed Proper or something like this.
Yeah.
Then it's like, oh really? Oh, I want to play with Proper, and then like the ball keeps rolling, like, because people want to play with Alarm and Proper.
You can just start with Alarm. Like, forget about Proper. Just begin with Alarm. That's already enough for a lot of people.
Yeah. No, for sure.
And they can afford to give bags to people. Like, Jesus Christ, like you are having a good time if you are the Philadelphia Fusion GM. Like, part of me, I was saying this in my own personal Discord, that like a fun mental exercise or like a fun game concept is like esports GM simulator, or like just like Overwatch GM simulator, where like you want to play on like super easy mode. You pick the Philadelphia Fusion, you have infinite money behind you, you got Comcast backing you can print money anytime you want. You got all these facilities, you can do whatever you want, and teams like players like you. You're a popular team. You got a great reputation, even though you haven't won yet. That's a different thing. But otherwise, you got a pretty decent reputation. You got T1 as a partner as well. Everything looks great. And then if you want to be like go full nightmare difficulty, you're the LA Valiant GM, where like you have absolutely nothing to work with. So Philadelphia Fusion really are just they can just win in terms of building a roster. Whether they can win the Overwatch League is a different question, apparently, but they can build a damn good roster if they want.
Sure.
Yeah. They always kind of have. I think in season 1, it was good. I don't know if great is the term we'd use, but I think past that point, well, I guess season 2 wasn't all that great either, so that's not necessarily the case, but always been in the conversation, or at least should have been. So I don't expect that to change.
I figured it out. Sato's coming back.
Hmm.
He's a free agent. He's a free agent. Maybe Fusion like him. I don't know.
Maybe.
Who knows?
Don't hate it. Do we expect them to have a wide roster? Like, are they the one team to like go like 10 players, multiple tanks, multiple?
I think they can go 9. I think they can go 3-3-3.
Okay.
Or
I'm
no, hang on. Do I like 3 tanks? No, I don't. Maybe 4-2-3. Yeah, 4 DPS, 2 tanks, 3 supports.
Mad at that?
I'm not a fan of 4D. Can I say I don't like 4 DPS? I think 3-2-3. Final
That's like the
DLC, they go 8.
perfect. Yeah. Agreed.
Smurf is a free agent. Oh, there's some good options.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yep.
And that's just that's just main tanks. We haven't even talked about off tank options as well. There's definitely off tank options out there. I mean, sure, you can re-sign Hopper if you want. Choi's available. Jesus Christ, you know.
Yeah. Some very. It's gonna be another.
Like
I think we say
available.
this.
Like, oh my god, like Gesture. Come on. Like, oh, please sign Gesture.
Gesture to Philly, unretiring right after his retirement.
Is he retired?
I think so. Didn't he not say he wanted to retire?
Is that what he said?
Who?
Hey, look.
Gesture.
No, Gesture is retired. Yes.
Okay.
Oh, fuck it. Unretire him.
Yeah. Throw him a bag. Get him some more rings.
Get him back.
Yeah.
So yes. So you know they have the option of pick up another. You know, like last week we were just masturbating over the idea of like Alarm Twilight Smurf being on this team. You had like, you know, you got Carpe and there you had like the Pelican proper duo as well, and you just cover your walls in slime at that stage. It's just ridiculous. Like you've just built the God Squad at that stage. So
it's cozy, like a warm sweater.
You can definitely build a God Squad on this team if you want. The pieces are there for a true God Gamer squad of just potential best in slot players across the board.
Yep. Sure.
Philly's exciting.
Philly is a prospect, and I love building up the hopes and dreams of the Philly fans as well, because there's a non-zero chance that they get crushed.
Yeah.
And not by me. I just like to stoke the flames, but I want to see how this is. I know Roston was checking out the Contenders Career Finals, so Roston, my man, got some work ahead of you. Got some stuff to do. You know what to do. We already brought up this team slightly, but that is the San Francisco Shock, where they have really expunged quite a bit. And before anyone asks, is this the case? Is this like a Houston Outlaws thing where everyone's contract expired? Nope. There was a shitload of +1s, and they pretty much all got declined. Let's go through them. Glister, Nero, Arns, all declined. Tayo, contract expired. Choi, Smurf, options declined. Super, contract expired. FD God, option declined. Twilight, expired. Violet is the only person being retained on a new contract. That's it.
Bro.
What does this team look like? This is gonna be a weird step into the unknown with the Shock, who there's just a lot of players that have been around for so long.
Can't believe they're not keeping Tayo.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's bizarre, man. It's gonna be weird to in a world like there's a non-zero chance that we see Choi Hyobin in a different jersey than we have for such a long time, right? Same with Super, same with Smurf, right? Like DPS wise, it's been pretty interchangeable. Twilight, in a way, felt like he had like a good place with the team, or kind of solved a lot of their issues. There's just some big hitters here that just like there's a real good chance that they're just not re-signed and they just play somewhere else.
Yep.
Oh,
I mean, they have not been re-signed. They've had pretty much all the options declined. So
I'm not ruling out the possibility that maybe they end up going back. Who knows? But yeah, that's gonna be a weird day when Choi Hyobin gets signed to the New York Excelsior.
It's so different when you look at Houston. It's like, I'm sure they would have loved to have kept their players, but they couldn't. Shock could, and they chose not to.
Chose
Some
not
of them make sense.
Yep.
Some of them is like, wow, they're really letting go of this guy. Choi, I think, is the most staggering one to me.
Mm.
Like all the rest of them, I'm like, yeah, maybe, possibly, I can see that. Choi is the one that I would have been like, if I'm Shock, I bank Choi and Violet and build from there. But they let Choi go. They
Yeah.
actually just let him go because option declined.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is gonna be a weird team. I don't know where to put them. Obviously, they only have one player, but like,
Mixed team or full Korean moving forward? What do we like?
You can do both with those coaches.
yeah. Who knows? I mean,
It's 9K
that's
back
tough.
to San Francisco. That's the rumor, right?
Yeah.
He's potentially back to San Francisco.
Yeah.
So it's crusty 9K, possibly.
Possible, yeah. Could do both. I'm definitely
Now, Crusty just has to get Junk back as well. Junk Buck back as well, and he's reassembling the coaching God squad.
Is that the true Thanos like last like gem in the gauntlet, and then he just snaps a championship into existence?
I think it's more important to get the right players, but
Yeah,
it's just
By
Yiska?
Outlaws, by Pelican, coached by Krusty 9K. There you go.
I mean, with
Myself.
Violet here, you can basically do that. For what it's worth, by the way, I don't think every single piece on Ultra Blast is like a guaranteed banger. I think they have some ridiculously good pieces, but like if they're not the type of team, and this is coming from me, by the way, that I'm like, yeah, sign the full roster, every single player, and you're good to go. I don't think you sign every single player. I think if you want to build like a really strong team out of Shock are not a team that go hard on rookies, do they? I don't think they are.
No,
Their
not since
history
like
is
season 1. Yeah.
Arns is okay, maybe Arns, but they don't go.
Yeah.
They don't normally go heavily for
Kyle.
rookies. I think this is but that's a weird signing. Like you'll bring that up like it's a normal thing for Shock, and then they just don't play him again. He plays like a couple of games of Genji and he's never seen again.
Yeah.
So I think
worry,
Shock
there's a
are more
plan.
likely. Shock are more likely to get veterans,
Yeah.
aren't they? Isn't that their mo?
Like, if they-
I still think they get Funny Astro Poco. I think Funny Astro Poco goes Shock. That's my belief.
Maybe, yeah. That's not on not off
Maybe
the
Shockwave
table.
as well.
Shockwave, I could see. Shockwave, I feel like makes a lot of sense.
Why? Because his name's got Shock in it.
No, I think that
but it does work.
it does. It is thematic. It's not that he's a rookie, but I think Krusty, in a way, has like an eye for like some DPS, if that makes sense.
Aspire
think-
is going Shock. Surely.
You think maybe? I don't know. God, it's so hard to like conceptualize
some
what these
heavy
teams
hitters.
look like.
Dude, if Shock are willing to, this again based on the rumor, if
Yeah,
they're willing to buy out 9K and he was expensive to buy out, Shock, they're dumping some cash into building a roster. You don't simply get 9K.
is that
over
who you
for
buy though? Do you buy
big pri-
Aspire?
You don't get 9K back for a big price
Of
unless
course.
you were then willing to proceed further by putting some heavy hitters in the player department on your roster as well. Like, I think Shock probably give Space an offer.
Yeah.
Space might still want to go with Glands, but I think Shock make it spicy. You know, I think Shock makes
Mhm.
Space do a bit of a double take.
Think
Like,
about
oh,
it.
maybe I should think about this further. Yeah,
I don't hate that. That makes a lot of sense.
depends how heavy does Shock want to go for Korean or Western or what.
Mhm.
They got
Yeah.
Violet here, which means you got one Korean player minimum. I think they probably have a mixed roster again. That's my guess. And I think if you want to assemble, the God Squad of mixed rosters, you definitely get Funny Astro. Poco, I assume he's good, but it's still hard to say.
Mm.
Just because we didn't see him play for the full year, right? I think you get like who's a player that looked great and was like could do more, like Aspire, right? I think Aspire would do great on this team. That's a player that I think Krusty can definitely, look at and really smack his lips over. Like, damn, that's a good choice.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Dante return.
That's kind of where I was going with Houston. I was like, is there like a weird, like bizarro world where Dante goes back to Shock to like prove it at the end of the like possible life cycle of the Overwatch League, right? Like starting in Overwatch 2. That's when Dante returns. Be kind of interesting. Kind of fun. Don't hate it either. I'm mad at it.
The tanks, I'm trying to understand.
Yeah,
if you don't have Choi and Smurf coming back, what are you looking for?
Who are you going with?
Yeah.
Like what are you thinking in terms of clearly you want to build a potential championship team. You've kept Violet and you want 9K based on the rumor. So if you're trying to build a championship team and you don't want Smurf and Choi, who do you want?
Yeah.
It's a big question. It's hard to answer. Who the hell do you want if it's not Choi and Smurf?
Yeah.
Weird. You clearly want Ameng and Gesture together as a duo on this team.
Dude, it's like so weird to just look at the free agent market, decide which players Shock should pick up, and the top prospects you have in mind were on the Shock last year. It's such a weird. Like I'm not sure if. I mean, yes, I understand like needing new, like a fresh start and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Bro, like even like keeping someone like Twilight would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I think in Overwatch 2. And like, are you going to do better than fucking?
No,
like,
no.
even...
Twilight's contract expired. That was out of their control.
Right. What
True.
about
Makes
or
sense.
like Super? Even though
Contract
like,
expired.
yeah. I mean, he's
Contract.
top 200 Twitch income, so I guess like he doesn't need to. Are you
Seems like he wants to keep playing. Based on what the rumor mill's spinning, it seems like Super wants to keep playing.
Yeah.
I hope he
he's
does.
a high value player that can take a bag anywhere. I'm
Yeah.
sure he'll get an offer.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Is this a potential home for Pelican? If we
No.
play in the, you don't think so?
Pelican probably wants to stay in Korea.
Yeah.
True.
You think Shaw go to Korea?
Maybe he gets attracted to the titles. Wants to win.
He can win in Korea too. It's like, what do you mean? Like,
Krusty's got some resume. I guess what I'd be maybe banking on, right? Like, is proven. Trying to assume, that third title, chasing that third title, maybe the Rookie of the Year is not a bad choice. I don't know. They got room for him. They're splashing out. They're trying to get a bag. He wants to win.
I wouldn't rule it out. I think everyone has a price, and even if Pelican wants to go to Korea, for the right price, he could stay and go back to America, go back to North America to play for a team. So not out.
It's that kind of caliber of player. You know what I mean? Like that's where we kind of think about Shock. Where
can I be real? I think Arns could be a good shot next year. I think Arns is one of those prodigal hitscan players, and I have a good feeling about hitscan in Overwatch 2. A great feeling about hitscan. And I think if Arns can really turn on his hacks like he did last year and just take control of games, bro, that is a W right there. So maybe they felt like they didn't want to take the risk. Like Arns to me is one of those extremely solid third DPSs that could easily be a starter as well, depending on the meta. But if he becomes a starter in the right meta, this guy can straight up win you games by himself. And I'm basing a lot of this on his performance from last year. Obviously, people will say, well, what about Arns this year? Well, I mean, Hitscan meta
Arns
was
didn't get to play this year.
It's a very bad meta of Hitscan this year, to be fair to Arns. I don't think he had the fairest opportunity to show his best. But I would gamble on Arns again next year if it were up to me.
Agreed. Yeah, I think to your point, like in the right meta, even if you get like a brief like glimpse at a hitscan meta, I think he's like a free ticket to the playoffs at the very least.
You got an S+ player that in the right meta is an easy W.
Yep. He's a third DPS. I think you put it perfectly. Like he's not somebody that is going to start all the time, but when he can, is going to solely win you games. Will take over games. Yeah, would gamble. Big agree.
I think Shock rebuild a mixed roster super team. That's my honest take on that. I think they're in position to.
Yep.
And I want them to. I really want to see them do that. So put the Yotta Chad and the Drip Lord on the same team together.
The
You gotta do
Drip
it.
Lord.
Drip Lord and the Yotta Chad on the same team.
I love it.
The masculinity could not be exuded further. That's the true Sigma male team would be with Ameng and Gesture together at the same time.
Mm.
I don't care that they're both main tanks. That's part of the masculinity exuding out. Okay, so
Next one.
after Shock, we have Seoul, which is the team that Gesture left. Why did he leave? He had his contract expired. So here we go. Profits, both Profit and Fits under new contracts. Zero surprise. Easily the best part of their team. Hope they both got bags. Say Belby retired. Probably not a surprise. He released, by the way, I think he streamed, and there were some notes coming from his stream. Might have also been in his Twit longer. Probably check both if you're interested. Basically saying that he believed that his own performance had dipped quite massively, that he believed he was below the standard of even contenders in terms of individual skill level, and that he, I don't want to put any words in his mouth, but it seemed like he probably lost a lot of motivation for the game as well. And he ended up on Seoul. Now, this is back to what he was saying. On Seoul, this season, he was spending a bit more time helping the team as a bit of a pseudo staff member and doing some coaching as well instead of playing. And there was probably zero chance he would get playtime over Profit or Fits anyway, just because of how damn good that duo was this year. So Gesture's contract expired. He's retired. Marvel's contract is expired. He's currently a free agent. I would actually expect that maybe Seoul might give him a contract again and say, Marvel, do you want to come back? 2U's option has been declined. Animo's option is declined. And Creative had his option. So what we're really looking at here is Seoul have specifically chosen to retain 3 players, and then everybody else either had their options declined or retired or contract expired.
I think so. Flex support. You kind of put this seed in my head earlier when you were looking at Boston and how like maybe it's just strategic move that maybe they don't re-sign or they decline the option of Myeonbong. Maybe they want to gamble with it. Maybe they think that they can kind of afford a mid pack, and maybe those mid pack choices at flex support are really really good. That's where I look at Creative and I'm like, I did like him this season. I did think he had a good season overall. But if you put Seoul in that same kind of discussion, do you not feel like you could get somebody just a little bit better? Or do you bank on the fact that you've worked with him before?
There's maybe something intangible there that they like.
Kind of where I'm guessing that choice was made is they know what they're working with. Again, maybe like you said, there's some intangibles. I don't hate it. Definitely not a bad choice. It's just like, there's a lot of flex supports in the market. Is this where you want to put your...
Can I say one of those options? I am heavily speculating that this is a potential home for Jonak.
No. Yeah.
Real talk.
Oof.
Yeah.
Boy,
it was either I was almost tempted to bring this up, but it's like really hard to ignore like Violet. It's like I think Jonak either goes to Seoul or he goes to Shock. One of the two.
I think Jonak probably, if he has the option to stay in Korea, unless Shock just have
of course
an unbelievable bag to give him.
Yeah.
But
going home is definitely a non-factor. It's very valuable. So yeah, I would agree. I think you could see Jonak in a Seoul jersey for sure.
I think Seoul can make a great team here. DPS is pretty locked up. They could probably get a 30, but dude, Arns could be on this team for fuck's sake. Profit Fits Arns could be powerful. Then again, no, I probably want a more flexible player in my 3rd DPS. I don't want another hit scan player after Fits. I probably want more like a Stalker that they already have. Stalker could be a great 3rd DPS for this team. Just because he's someone that's probably not expecting to start. He knows he's a rookie. He knows that Profits are king on this team. He'll be there to round out the hero pools, if anything. I don't see too much movement in the DPS side of things. It's the tank and supports that are the biggest question mark. I wouldn't be I wouldn't be surprised if Marvel gets given another look by Seoul. His contract expired. He didn't have an option declined, so it's like hey Marvel, do you want to come back? I think Marvel's hero pool is pretty unique for a tank player, and that's maybe attractive for a lot of teams.
Yep.
There's that.
By the
Marv
way,
2 coming back.
just like as a buy to buy, and let's not totally like get off topic, but Hoko was just announced to leave the Fusion. And with that, I believe Carpe is the last player that remains on the team
Same team.
that signed him in season 1, week 1, so to speak. I don't think there's another player. That's pretty
Off the
sick.
top of my head, I can't. Yeah, can't remember anybody.
Yeah. Damn.
Interesting though.
Damn, dude.
Kind of a bittersweet.
Carpe is the last one there. So, what are we liking for Seoul, tank support wise? Anybody else want to drop some names, some suggestions, some speculation?
Jesha.
He just left, you moron.
Why are you so tilted, bro?
By the way, how many people were just so upset? The people were so angry before this contract document came out, and people were like,
What?
"Man, why would Seoul keep Gesture? I can't believe that they bend everyone else, but they didn't get rid of Gesture. Like, is Prophet secretly the GM of this team? Did Prophet blackmail the GM or something? Like, what is like guys, chill the fuck out."
Someone on Twitter told me, like, can you ask into the possibility that apparently Prophet like threw his weight around and said he wasn't going to re-sign unless they signed his buddy and shit like this, and you're like, bro, like, you're just like thinking up your how you perceive the world by the power of your fantasy. Like, such a weird take. Now back to the topic of like who you're bringing on, bro. Just like fucking snag that shock tank line. Done.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. Choice Smurf?
I think both Fusion and both Fusion and Soul might want a piece of that.
For sure. Yeah.
And Fusion probably can't afford it over. So I don't know. Maybe Soul can really throw their weight around, but like Fusion probably more so. I don't know.
Yeah.
Are there any like big main supports that are on the market? I just like the three I think of.
Hang on. Seoul are really big on rookies, actually. Seoul is one of the few teams that really like to go for rookies. Not only do they really like to go for rookies, they promote internally all the time. Guys like Creative and 2U came through from Gen G. Seoul love to go through their own organization, and they do take a lot of chances on rookies. So I actually think guys like Kellen can come through, and like the Clistons of the world, you know.
Okay.
The Contenders Korea tanks can really come through and do something here. That's what I see.
Definitely have a track record for sure. Definitely could do that. Yeah, that one's tough. Do you think that like that would match the pedigree that Seoul maybe is looking for? Like, do you think that they could really live up to Seoul's expectations? Somebody like Kellen, for example.
He's probably the hottest prospect as far as main tanks from Contenders Korea goes.
Okay.
That's what they want.
Okay.
Because otherwise, like, what else are you doing? You gonna get Fisher out of retirement? Like, what?
That would be interesting. That would be a pull. Been pretty vocal about Seoul's strategy, especially last year. But
yeah. Well, they did get rid of Chang'un as the coach. Maybe Fisher comes back as the coach.
Maybe.
Did Seoul announce a new coach? No, they didn't, did they?
Just departures. That's all I've seen.
Yeah, so they've lost Chang'un, and they currently do not have a head coach. They still have, to my knowledge, MMA their assistant coach and Bongwuri their assistant coach as well as 2 analysts on the team. So they have 4 staff members in the coaching staff and no head coach. One of those guys could be promoted to a head coach position. So I wouldn't hold my breath at like putting a new coach on this roster to replace Chengdu specifically. Rather, like maybe just give MMA the upgrade, you know, the promotion. But Man, Seoul are interesting. They have a lot to compete with in the space. There's a lot of teams that are looking for stuff. Their main rival for free agents is still, in my opinion, the Fusion. Both teams, I suspect, will be going for the same players.
I think to your credit though, like you do kind of highlight something that people are definitely going to undervalue is the fact that Seoul gets to play at home. A lot of their players gets to play, where they know, where they're familiar with, districts that they've have maybe frequented before, in close proximity to their family.
Districts they may have frequented before.
I'm just thinking out loud, right? Like it is not something that
I was born and raised in Seoul. I might have frequented some districts around the local area.
I don't know. I'm like, it's a popular place. I would guess that it's pretty, frequented.
Oh god.
So that's not a non-factor. It's valuable in the eyes of players. Definitely could be a bargaining chip that they use.
Yeah, but Fusion have the same chip, which is why, like, the thing is, like, Seoul and Fusion are just going to end up bidding against each other for the same dudes. Is what it probably comes down to.
True.
I don't know, man. Seoul have a high possibility of snagging some real good pieces.
Yep.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay. The fun ones now. The V teams. Start with the APAC V team. Valiant. Are they even APAC anymore?
I think so.
I
think so.
Think so?
You think so?
Yeah.
You think they're staying?
I'm not sure if that's decided yet, but I haven't heard anything to the contrary.
Man.
I'm under the speculation that they are moving.
Oh, really?
I'm just guessing. I'm a fucking stab in the dark. I don't have any info. Well, we can talk about both. You can represent the Valiant staying, and I can represent the Valiant going, and Joe can be the perennial fence sitter.
I can do both. You want me to do both real quick?
Okay, go.
I don't care for this team.
Right. Okay. Now do that again.
He's not wrong.
Do that again, but care.
Okay, but this time try.
Okay, who asked?
I'm asking right now. What do you mean? I'm asking in this exact moment.
Oh man,
I don't know. They're probably going to go to one of those, like, like where those things where you get your gum from, like you put a coin in, and then that's where they get their players from, basically. Like on January 4th. They're going to sign someone that then can sign random players that they can then somehow try to pay under minimum budget, which is now 52K, I think.
This 50, is the
50.7, 50,700, isn't it?
Something like that. Yeah, it's an odd amount.
Oh, Yiska was about to give everyone another 1,300 pay rise. Jeez,
nice guy.
Think we're all made of money here.
Is this not like the most like senioritis team?
What's that?
Does that make sense? So in at least in where I grew up, I think it's mostly United States. It's this like feeling that you get in your last year of high school, so grade 12, where like you just stopped caring. You just show up, you do the minimal effort, and you just go home and you enjoy life and you prepare for college, right? You prepare for university. I feel like, and this is the feeling, this is not what I'm assuming is going to happen. This is not me speculating, but what I feel like is happening with the Valiant is they show up very late to the signing window. They're going to sign like a middling APAC team, just like wholesale. They're going to give a minimum and they're going to, go back to whatever else they were doing.
Middling.
Like nobody else, like who's going to want to play for that?
No, I don't think they will sign middling. It's just going to be straight up garbage. It's going to
it'll be garbage in the context of the Overwatch League.
Make Shanghai Dragons actually look like a better team from season 1. Like they already are. Just bring some games home. Like your team fight win rate is already abysmally worse. Your map win rate is abysmally worse. Like you don't care anymore. Let's just you can't find someone to buy this shit off you. Like it's just like sit out your contract however long you want. Now, initially when you said senioritis, it made it very for an app comparison, because you should be trying your ass off so you can have a smooth ride into college. At the same time, you should be trying your ass off because you could have a smooth ride into Overwatch 2, which is a similarly big opportunity for you, even if you slacked through high school. Apparently, they're not. I mean, I'm not sure. Maybe that there's they recently moved a bunch of leadership around. I think moved them up. Maybe they rethink their approach. But bro, if I'm looking at their current moves, this is the most cynical shit ever, because this looks like they're trying to minimize the salary budget by just going as late as possible into the signing window in order to save money for the half a year or rather 4 months, where you won't need players after the season end. It's just, I don't know, dude.
Why does that cost more money? Everyone's getting 50,700 anyway. How does that change anything?
No, you don't have any players signed, right? It's an annualized salary.
Yeah. Why does it matter when you sign them? You still have to pay the same 50,700.
No, I don't think so. It's for the same reason that you're not paying Taro Cookie 50K by the end of the season because he was signed halfway through. You annualize the salary, so you divide by 12, and then that's your monthly salary, and that's what you pay them. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure about this.
Okay, so my brain hurts right now. So what is? So let's try and figure this out. The minimum salary is $50,700.
Yeah. And
every single player will get that, right? Did Tara Cookie for this year get $50,700?
I don't think so.
Or so he got less than that? Is that because that would be because he only played partially in the season, right?
Yes.
So it's a timing thing. Now, so what I'm arguing is the signing window closes when? January. You have to have 5 players, correct? So
yes.
By that position, what difference does it make for Valiant to sign tomorrow versus the last day in April that they can sign for, when no matter what, you are going to pay the same $50,700 whether you sign tomorrow or January?
All right, so I'll try to find this out. I could be totally wrong, so take this with a grain of salt. But my understanding is, you take $50,700, you divide that by 12, because 12 months, and that's the amount of salary you can expect each month. If you're not signed on this month, it is not subject to the minimum salary you got to pay. Meaning, if you don't have players signed for October, November, December, that's 3 months. So you now don't divide 50,700 by 9. You still divide it by 12, but don't pay them for these 3 months because their salaries.
What? But you're playing the full season. Should it not be the case?
But season preparation surely needs to be rewarded as well, right?
My misunderstanding that if you play from day 1 of the season to the final day of the season, whenever that is, you get the full 50,700. Yes or no?
I don't think so.
Am I wrong?
I don't think so.
You don't?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think
so if you play the full season, you might not get the full salary. What?
Yeah, because it's an annualized salary, therefore you would. Because let's be honest, it's not like you're playing for free in the preseason preparation and everything. That's it's not.
Then you just get paid. No, so this is what I'm saying is, if the season starts in April and ends in October, between April and October, technically speaking, if you only play that, you'd get your 50,700 divided by those months. If you play from January to October, you still get the same 50,700 divided by those months. If you play from October this year to October next year, it's still the same 50,700, is it not? My understanding is that no matter what, you are paying the same 50,700 no matter what length they are actually signed for, because it's the length of the full season.
No.
Is that incorrect?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's not a lump sum that you're getting.
I didn't say you're getting a lump sum. I'm saying that is your salary being spread over however long you're with the team for that one season.
But then you'd almost want to be signed as late as possible in the season because it's the least amount of work and the highest salary because you're getting it the same anyway, right?
As a player, sure.
Yeah, I don't think that's how it works.
That's motivation for a player, but like for a team, you're probably then motivated to sign them earlier. I don't know. Like I'm saying like that makes more sense. It doesn't make any. It makes a lot less sense to have it where the salary is different depending on when you get signed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's just like,
yeah, no. Like I'll
don't know.
try to find it out. Hopefully I remember, and I can add like a comment to it through the
okay.
into the YouTube comments, because
We'll hold.
yeah, I think the annualization of salary is the correct one and seems the more fair one.
Well, that to me just like makes the whole minimum salary thing a little bit weird and not pointless, but it kind of defeats the purpose because it means that a player can get signed for below minimum, which to me defeats the purpose entirely. Like, why do you have a minimum then? Like,
I mean,
the minimum is
it's a minimum per month rather than minimum per full year.
Fucking hell. Okay. Well, that is just that's confusing because like
and I could be wrong.
My the way I read it is that number, the 50,700 minimum, is the guaranteed amount of money that you will be getting for playing a full season start to finish. Was my understanding and my assumption and the way I read it, the way I interpret it. If it's not that, that's convoluted as fuck.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, let's so that aside, Valiant will be signing everyone for absolute minimum. It's 50,700 across the board, 6 players only. One of those players for the 6-man roster is probably not even going to be a sub, but is instead going to be a player coach that's going to do both.
Yeah.
Or rather, it's just going to coach and not play at all. And so you don't even need to sign a coach. You will be signing your coach through the player instead. And they're not going to pay a single dollar or a single cent in buyouts whatsoever. So they're going only for pure only, 0 buyouts involved. So again, like I said, if you want to play Overwatch General Manager Simulator 2022 on absolute nightmare difficulty, hardest difficulty possible, you are the GM of LA Valiant. Good luck.
Yep. In a weird, kind of fucked up way, kind of referencing what you said at the top of the hour, AVRL, like there's a real possibility that without contenders, because we don't have a full release of the game, and I don't know that Blizzard trusts the contenders ecosystem or is going to be able to push out an open beta quick enough to make contenders be like feasible. There's a weird scenario where you get a Valiant team that actually isn't terrible, right? Like, for example,
you get desperation signings.
Yeah, where it's just like there's nowhere else for them to go, so they can't really choose not to play for Valiant, right? Like, if you want to play Overwatch 2, you're going to have to deal with Valiant. Somebody like a Dia, somebody like an Ameng, maybe. And it sucks that that's like Dia's rookie, well, I guess not rookie season, but like birth back into the league is out of desperation to play for the Valiant, just to like try to do, cobble together a career in Overwatch 2 in whatever it looks like in the future. But I don't rule out the possibility that the Valiant might not be shit for none of their own like credit. It'll be circumstantial if the Valiant aren't last. I'll put it that way.
This applies to both APAC and NA storylines where no matter where they go, they are gonna end up with a bottom feeder team, sadly. And even if there's the other thing about being an NA is if they are an NA, they literally can only go for NA players. No imports, no Europeans, maybe not even Canadians, because they don't want to pay for a single cent for any import fees, visas, flights, nothing. Absolutely nothing. So forget about bringing over any. I'm sure there are players from Contenders Australia that wouldn't mind playing a Valiant for minimum. Bro, they won't even get signed just because of the logistics of importing. Valiant don't want to pay for that shit. So you are going for only US based players who can legally live and play in the US, who are just going to play from home. And you look at NA contenders and who can do that. The list does not go on very long. It is Well, it does go long. It depends how bottom of the barrel you want to start scraping. You want to start chipping the wood or what? Because it's bad. It's gonna be bad. But somebody would take a $50,700. Am I allowed to call it, like, compared to contenders? It is a bag. So I kind of wanted to call it a bag for that reason, but it's not. But if you're a contenders player, it kind of is, because
might be your only chance.
You get paid nothing in contenders. So anything's more than that.
Imagine if Valiant comes back to NA and just signs all the Vancouver Titans players they let go this season.
That would be truly shitting back and forth forever.
It'd be bad, but it might still be better than scraping the barrel in NA contenders. Actually, it might be worse. It's hard to say. It's actually really difficult to say.
Yeah.
No other. I mean, I guess there's not much further to talk about Valiant. It's just that expectations are still super low.
Yeah.
Whatever region they're playing in, not going to be competitive.
Yeah.
They will be entertainment thieves, so
yes.
Hold on to your entertainment tightly. Don't let them steal it from you.
I mean, they're going to, like, at least probably have you cast half of their matches.
Not if they're in NA.
Monkey paw quills.
God damn. I might just call in sick every time they play. I got a case of the old can't cast shit teams itis again. Sorry.
No.
I'll do it. All right. Speaking of shit teams, you kind of brought up Vancouver Titans a little bit there. Are they going to be another bottom feeder team again? Is that going to happen? They have released everybody, as far as I'm aware.
Mm-hmm.
So they actually had 1+1s. They declined pretty much all of them. Dalton and Rolf are the only ones that actually had contracts that expired. I believe that's because they had contracts from the previous year as well. So they had already used up their 1+1s. Linksateru, Fried, Chungsik, and Fire are gone. Linksa might be retiring. He was hinting at that before, but he hasn't announced anything yet. So we will see. The rest of them, FRD, by the way, Fried is looking for a new team, so he's committed to wanting to play again. Now, yeah, maybe he joins the I don't know. Maybe I don't know what he does. Maybe he'll be okay. Maybe he won't. The Titans are done-zoing their team. What's interesting though is what I'm discovering through this contract status page is that Valiant basically signed their entire team for a 1-year contract, no 1+1s, whereas Vancouver actually had 1+1s on their team, which is quite interesting.
They just decline the options. Maybe this is the team that ends up like halfway decent at the bottom of the stratification of next year, right? Maybe they get the desperation picks. Maybe to their credit, maybe to them not really doing anything. I don't know. Both these teams are just such nothing burgers, and I'm very tired of saying that. I wish they were at least entertaining.
You were not entertained by the breadsticks? Come on.
I mean, that was their saving grace, right? Like, was a manufactured narrative that the community kind of like took hold of and fell in love with, which is great. That's fantastic. That's better than what the Valiant did, who rarely even communicated. So credit to them there. But
because hiring a social media manager costs money, Joe. You have to understand.
It's true. That is true. Can't afford that. It's got to turn into pop cans so we can pair players, I guess. I don't know. It's
so boring dystopia, bro.
Yeah, it's both these teams. I genuinely like. I wonder if there's like another like alternate reality where like both of these teams are better because like the ownership group as a collective are like, can you guys stop sucking, please? You're making us all like, you're just running the product into the ground. Like there are 2 bye weeks.
I can't tell them to not
bro,
do that. I can't tell them to
nah.
do that.
Not now they can't, but
nah, this is like, you know how owners think about this? They look at it's like me looking at the end of the month at my bank balance and going like, oh, what's that red number? Oh, I'm still subscribed to Disney Plus, bro. And like at that scale, they're like, oh, I'm still subscribed to the Overwatch League. I should really cancel that, man, sometime. I'll do it next week. Like, this is basically like how these owners have been treating these teams. Like, it's just there to be there. Hopefully it pops. I don't know.
There you go. The V teams. What can we say? Do better.
Yeah. At least like give us like an aura of like wanting to try. Like there are teams where the owners are just as like unattentive as others, and they still provide great storylines.
On a level though, can you blame them too much?
No.
If they're losing a lot of money and they're trying to stem the bleeding,
of course not. I don't blame
can you
them.
blame them too much for the direction they've gone?
I mean, now you get me in my bag where I think like sports should never be invested in as an investment of money. It's like it's basically like I kind of enjoy the idea of just people with a lot of money doing sports as like a side thing to have fun. I quite like that, like Paris, PSG type of situation where they're never recouping their investment, but like it just works. That's how it should be, I think.
Yep.
Well, yes. When there's money involved, there's business to be made. So I mean, that's the thing. At the end of the day, it's like,
I understand. Yeah.
It ends up being a business because there's money involved. So
Sure,
that's how it is.
That's why
I wouldn't mind if it was an expensive hobby as well for billionaires, but
dude, like
there's only so many Tuckers that exist in the world.
in WoW Arena, we had like these. We had a bunch of billionaires in there. Like either it was like some crown prince or like some actual billionaire that liked WoW Arena, and he just paid out they just paid out the wazoo for some of these WoW players to just play 5v5 with them, and they weren't even bad, dude. Like people would just have their entire college existence paid for just playing with like some billionaires. Some pretty public ones as well. I'm not sure if that was ever made public, but definitely also people you would recognize as big streamers, right? And like, why are you not attracting these guys? Just some play money, throw it down mid and just like make some fun teams. I don't know, have some fun with it.
Which of the two of you earlier? I think it was AVRL that like mentioned like the too hard. That checks off the too hard box. Like it's too hard to manage a team. I don't want to, put your mind in that kind of person's like empathize with them for a moment, where it's just like, why don't I just like go into their DMs and just ask them to play? I don't want to have to like go through this grandiose process of trying to apply. And it's like, yeah, no, that makes perfect sense why they wouldn't want to be like in that space, right? It's stressful. Fuck that.
Yeah.
I'll pay somebody to do that in a better market.
Is there a world where any of these players have a future? Dalton, Linksa, Teru, Fried, Changsick, Fire, Rolf.
Maybe Fire. Maybe.
I think he's likely to retire.
Rolf definitely is a retired waiting to happen. Bless his heart. Dalton, maybe. It's kind of just fringe choices that I'd probably just take a rookie for. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah. By the way, usually I'd say, man, it's quite weird for players to want to retire right on the precipice of a new game releasing. But then I remember that, like, well, they're not going to get access to that game anyway, so it's not like they can play and grind it to try and get on a team.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
try again next year.
I guess they can't. I guess retirement does make a lot more sense.
Yeah,
doesn't it? I don't know.
How nuts would it be for players to just like stick around OWL, actually like not care too much about the competitive aspect, but just be stuck around so they get a close beta key?
That's like the most cynical take I think I've heard.
To then do what with it? Like
play the game.
Or try and transition.
What,
no, just because you like playing the game, yeah.
So playing for the lols then, okay.
Bro, like Libero billionaire, crypto billionaire Libero just coming back, running it back for an OWL Overwatch 2 beta key. Why not?
What's up, Valiant?
You need a player? Let's go. Why not? Let's see what this game's about.
He just buys a team for himself, signs himself as a player, and then just to get a beta key.
Man,
That would be hilarious.
so there's obviously a lot of teams that we didn't talk about. Speaking of Libero, obviously, you know, we didn't end up talking about New York or any of that. We talked about that plenty last week, though. Nothing's really changed there. Jonak's probably rumored not to come back. We didn't really end up talking about any of the Joe teams. Okay, Hangzhou have held on to 3 tank players, but that was information that we had last week as well. Still a baffling decision. And overall, I don't know that there was anything else that was super interesting from the contract stuff. You had Justice revealing that they have also declined Bebe's option, so both Closer and Bebe had options declined. Closer's retiring anyway. Tuba's declined. Assassin Decay, Jerry Fury Mag are all there, so they've actually got 5 players retained, which I think we already talked about. Shanghai, we haven't talked about last week or this week. I don't know that there's just much there. Like, they're retaining their championship roster, and that's it. They're getting rid of Develop because they feel like they don't need a 4th DPS. Super understandable. I think that's a reasonable thing to do. 3 supports, which includes double flex supports, 1 main support. Again, super smart thing to do. Very likely to be a double flex support meta. Keeping Molly makes sense here. Keeping Fate and Void, smart, safe thing to do. You don't know what tanks are going to pop off. Frdwnr, who are you? You got a lot of options there for DPSs. Like, this is, if I am a GM that has plenty of money, I might not be like mega rich, but I have like good enough money to throw around. This is it. Keeping 8 players on Shanghai is absolutely perfect. 3 DPS, 2 tank, 3 supports. You could not ask for a more perfectly supported roster than that. So I guess there's just nothing else to add for Shanghai except that, like, good job, Moon. You held on to your championship roster, and go you good thing, right?
Yeah, like
Much.
the one thing that's so weird is who are you? Like, this guy.
You mean Overwatch League champion? Who are you?
I'm sorry. Yeah. Also, Apex Season 3 champion. Who are you?
That's you're goddamn right. He is.
Yo, I don't understand. Like, this guy must have crazy intangibles. Maybe like when he smashes his desk in Rage, he has a great beat that keeps the troops rolling or some stuff. Like, I don't know what's going on.
He does a sound barrier off the back of it.
I don't like. Of course, there must be.
Player. Like, first, you know, you're Lunatic High, the classic Lunatic High Season 3 benching of Who Are You?
Oh.
And, like, sure, now it's definitely a different reason because now you're just Frdwnr and Lip are too good to have anyone else play.
Yeah.
The option is there. I actually don't mind this because I'm gonna be real with you. Could Shanghai get someone like Proper? It's not impossible.
Yeah.
But I think if I'm Proper, I don't know that I want to join a team to be bench for Frdwnr and Lip. I think I would only join this team if I'm Proper to bench one of those 2 players, but it's probably not going to happen. What Shanghai need is a dedicated bench player who can play projectile, can flex around, and maybe fill the outskirts and fill a couple of different bits and pieces for very specific metas. Moon doesn't need a 3rd DPS, by the way. I think Frdwnr and Lip can just do it all. But if you want to be super safe about it, and you want a career bench player, well, you might just be your legitimate career bench player.
But
so,
why not like get someone from Team CC, like Innovation or something? Are your cogs?
Great question. Maybe they just don't want something.
Does Innovation want to be a career bench player?
I'm not sure.
Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, if you're Moon, you're probably if you go to any of these guys, you're probably going there with the intention of being like, so we're kind of interested in you, but just to be clear, if I sign you, you will be a perma bench player.
Sure, but like,
just to be clear,
Innovation is also 22, dude. Like, this guy is basically a grandpa. Like, can you expect like more?
A grandpa calling a grandpa a dinosaur.
Would you? But is Who Are You maybe a better player? That's the thing. Like, Innovation, what does Innovation bring hero pool wise? A Tracer and a Sombra, both covered comfortably by Frdwnr and Lip. What else does he play? May, not important enough for no one's a May specialist. Get out of here. What else? There's not much else there.
Oh,
You start getting pretty bad after that. Who are you? At least has that like Genji and Pharah and stuff that he's known for, and the Doomfist that he can play. Right? He's got a couple of pieces there that maybe Flitter and Lip don't actually do super well. Well, minus the Pharah, we know Flitter's Pharah is phenomenal. I haven't seen Flitter's Genji in a hot minute, so can't speak on that one.
yeah.
It was also pretty sweet back in the day.
I guess Lip can play the Doomfist, but he's not like super well known for it. That's a really hard special aspect.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of career bench players out there that could fulfill the role that Huayu's fulfilling. I think he's actually kind of perfect for the role in a way.
That's where the crypto genius mastermind rich billionaire libero comes in. Unironically, I think that he's one of those players that I think could maybe take to like some of the new heroes.
Not even playing the game. You're talking about someone that
that's the type of player.
Unfortunately, a career bench player still needs to grind the game. A career bench player is not some guy that sits there, collects a paycheck, and then plays Valorant.
Correct.
You have to still be good enough that if required and a Doom meta shows up, Huayu comes and he pounds on that hero. That's what's required.
Yeah.
You can't be some dude that just collects a paycheck. So it's a hard role to play. And it's a situation where Moon goes to somebody, you will be a permanent bench player who will probably never get a game time unless Doom is like 100% pick in this meta.
Yeah.
But you will still be required to hard grind a bunch of different heroes while being a permanent bench player. That's a hard sell.
Mm-hmm.
And the only real sell after that is like you're on a championship team, but you will never play. Like I don't know. I think a lot of players would not take that deal. Is what I'm saying.
Sure. Of course. Yeah, makes perfect sense. They want to win. They want to compete. They want to
They want to play.
Yeah.
You don't sign up to be a pro player and just sit on a bench the whole time. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody.
Yeah, we're not developed.
Apparently, Huayu does.
But that's what I'm saying. Is like, how many more players can you get that can just do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is it really that surprising that they kept Huayu then under that context?
No, probably
Come
not.
on.
Yeah. Probably not.
I think I'm onto something.
Yeah. I mean, Moon, call me up if you just want me to sit on a bench for 50k. You can do that. Like, I don't know.
Sure, dude. You're good enough, right? You're
Sojourn main over here.
It's not like it matters. It's like you won't ever need to like unless they fall sick. Like I don't know. It's just we'll see, I guess. And hopefully the DPS pool is even growing. Like the new heroes coming in, and maybe there's a necessity for a third player, and maybe we're even getting some. I mean, it's not impossible that we're getting like new specialization categories in Overwatch 2. Like not like everyone's saying that Flex is the only DPS that exists anymore, but it's also not impossible that we're going down a 3-prong road or whatever, right?
I have a suggestion.
Okay.
Shanghai should get Otto back. Oof. For real. I'm not lying. Otto can be, I don't know how comfortable Otto be with the bench player, but this guy is like still a reasonable player. Covers some heroes that a little bit more specialized maybe. He's a Genji, let's be honest, he's a Genji one trick. So he's kind of like a Who Are You, to be honest with you. So maybe they don't need him. Maybe they just keep Who Are You then, but I don't know, I'm spitballing. There's not a lot that fills. By the way, one of Fate and Void is going to be benched at any point next year. That's a hard pill to swallow. Ended up turning this into more of a Shanghai segment. We're just kind of like riffing over random teams that we haven't covered yet. And we're basically there. We've talked like extensively about Paris last week, so not going to go back there. What else? Gladiators have space exploring free agency. That's simply because his contract expired. It's not because they don't want him. Even Space has expressly said, by the way, that Gladiators do want to sign him again for next year, but because he is legally a free agent, he will explore that as he should and exercise his ability to explore free agency. So, what else? Joe teams are talked about. Mayhem, no developments at all. Dallas Fuel, no developments. So they'll be looking for some hot Korean talent to fill some of the shoes left behind. And that's it. That's, I believe, all the teams. So really, it's just a bit of a goodbye letter now to the retired players of the 2021 season, which the list, I believe, is Gesture Fusions, Repel, Ripper, Birdring, Bianca, Friday, Mano, Rascal, Toby, say Bjolby, Rascal, Birdring, so Rascal twice, Ripper twice, Toby twice. Okay, there's a bunch of things twice. So Yong, Repel, KSF, Harsha. Harsha, obviously a coach, and Yong a coach as well.
Yeah.
So, those players are so decent amount of those players are going to military service, by the way. So, not too crazy. But that is a lot of players gone. I mean, every year we are going to lose some players.
Of course.
That's
natural kind of decay of time.
a lot of old school season 1 players actually gone.
I mean, I think it deserves it as well. Both to a career and to a proper send-off standpoint. I think the Gladiators deserve. I think they deserve their own award. Give them an award just for how not only touching that send-off was for Birdring, but like just how well like produced it was. Genuinely one of the best pieces of content I think Overwatch has had in like recent memory.
Yep.
Yeah, really well done. I think just very touching, very kind of as transparent as you can be. With like the Kevster comments at the beginning, I thought that was like very gripping, especially at the start of the little send off. Yeah, well done. Hats off to you. A+ seal of approval. Loved it. Or please, just without the retirements.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yes, good. Anything else? Final comment?
I mean,
take us home.
To be honest, like these retirements really have me in a really like melancholic mood. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I recently like someone from the community just like shot me a DM because I said something in the Discord, and like for me, I realized like I don't think have created in the Overwatch League characters like we got out of APAC. Like someone like Super, for instance, with a success like Super, with the prolificness of Super, is like should be like legendary in my mind, and still like because we leaned so heavy in the goofy, like I realized very often finding out who these people are detracts from my enjoyment, and I actually greatly enjoy having like the like I enjoy the player more, the player profile than the person behind it, and like dispelling that illusion. Maybe it's an age thing as well, because like it's almost nothing that a 21-year-old could open his mouth to and not disappoint. It feels like. Especially if you know how much wisdom you are getting fed through the video game tube is probably also very limited. But like, it's not just that; it's just like how the stories were built up, and the more we lose of that, like I don't know, like for instance, the Apex Season 3 finals, like so much important Overwatch history happened in that final, theoretically speaking. Like, the players that are there, like, only Void remains. Like, all those legends retire now, and it's not even that, yes, many of them retire because they're not great at the game anymore, but you have a second chance, theoretically. And I don't see where we have a breeding ground to create these same amounts of, like, mythologies around them. I have a real problem with... I understand that you got to follow the bag and the interest. But I feel like because we lean so much into the entertainment, like I get that like comms checks are one of the most important or like well-doing pieces of content. I just wish they weren't, if that makes sense.
Of course,
you do not have like I care significantly less about Lip, for instance, than I care about Frdwnr. Because there's a way richer history created through the Apex experience than there is about Lip. Even though objectively speaking, for the last 2 seasons they've played about the same level of impressiveness, and I still had about the same level of exposure. Honestly, like that one sentence slipping already is like more than I ever needed, right? Like, I don't know. And I hope we can bring this back for Overwatch 2, and I hope we can create the same epic moments. I just don't see us being able to. I don't know if this game is capable of doing that again. There's a lot of doubts at this point in time, and then I'm sure like it all goes in ebbs and flows. And I feel like I'm on a low point of confidence of being able to get that feeling back. Just because of these retirements. It's probably an overreaction as well. But yeah, I'm really, I have a really melancholic feeling about this, and it feels like it's not too far in the future that we will say the last player from the Apex era has retired, and that kind of is pretty sad, because we've simply not had anything of the caliber of Apex storytelling to give us new that new type of the same essence that we've had before. So well,
I guess food for thought based on that, not to completely dive into this, because it could very easily get into another hour-long discussion. Maybe it's an episode we pin for a later date. But I think we battle with the idea that this game is how the stories are told, not the people around it who actually tell the stories, right? I think it's how we frame the game. I think you can take most competitive aspects and create a compelling story for people to kind of latch hold of, and I think that's what's missing. Maybe we get more of that with Overwatch 2. Maybe we get more of the same kind of goofy, cheery, wholesome content, but without much of the individual focus. I think this also battles the idea that the championship skins and the MVP caliber skins are gone because we want to celebrate the teams and not the individuals, right? We're at a weird kind of crossroads and what this game is, again, kind of supposed to be messaged as. So is it the game or is it how we tell it? I don't know.
Well, made some good content with the LA Gladiators stuff on the official Overwatch League channel. I don't know if you guys saw that. 3-part series, very well made. Fun fact as well is that it was actually filmed by the LA Gladiators content team. I'm not too sure who actually ended up editing and releasing it. Maybe that was within Overwatch League, but in either case, the ability to tell those stories certainly exists, and a lot more of that will need to happen in future. And the game is always, I think, the Overwatch League itself, in my opinion, has always needed an expansion of available teams and into different regions, and have a real, true multi-region kind of sport. But we're all on a massive dose of hopium for the future of Overwatch and how things go. And we have a long off season to kind of figure that out with the drip feed of Overwatch 2 information. Eventually, of which we'll need to dive a little bit deeper into. As soon as we have something more tangible to chew onto, I'm sure we will dive deep into that. But for now, just a big update on where the contract statuses are of different players, because that all got revealed. So that was quite an interesting thing to talk about this week. But next week, who knows? Don't know what exactly is on the cards just yet, or what news there will be. Leave us some suggestions down below in the comments if you have some good ideas of what kind of content you would like to see. That will otherwise do it for episode 196. 4 away now from the big old 200. So get your balls shaved. Shout outs to Manscaped. And we'll see you for 197 next week.